Is good afternoon. आवाज नहीं आ रही सर. चालू है. आवाज नहीं आ रही है. Yes, good afternoon, all of you. So, okay. Ethics in international relations and international funding. So that's the public service and public duty. Public duty is a duty upon a public servant. What you are going to do as a part of your public duty is a public service. Civil servant has a public duty to do public service. Duty is an individual employee, organizations, civil servant, whoever an employee which is there, he has a public duty to do public service. Public service is, duty is your obligation to do something for the larger interest of society. Okay. Yes, shall we start? Okay. So ethics and international relations. आपका IR हुआ है क्या? So IR is over for your class. Okay. Got it. ठीक है. Okay, I'll give you then a brief perspectives of IR so that it will help in understanding the topic also. Perspectives in IR. In fact, any issue you have to see from different angles because ethics is not again unidimensional. It has to be looked from different paradigms that exist in analyzing any particular international issue. So, international issue is broadly analyzed from point of view of a realist perspective, a principle of realism. Then there is a liberal perspective, liberalism, and then there is a cosmopolitan perspective. Cosmopolitan perspective. Okay, so these are the broad three aspects into the international relation. Realist perspective, or you call it realism. Marker lena yaar jara naya. Now, in case of realistic perspective, what is an understanding of international society and international politics? So there are certain assumptions here, or reality also, that the first thing is that international system is a system of anarchy. Okay, there is a system which is defined as anarchical state. What is an anarchy? What does the international system in anarchy would mean? There is no law. Yes, there is no central government. Okay, so you can write, there is no central authority. There is no central authority in international politics. There is no central authority. What does it mean? It means that you might think of UN is there, but UN is not a sovereign international body which is going to dictate the states. Okay, UN is more of a international body where the sovereign states are cooperating with each other. Understanding, United Nations do not impose the things. It is a voluntarily you take up the relationship of United Nations, and the state are remain the principal actors. So there is no central authority, means like in case of internal politics, whatever happens, there is a central authority called state. But in international politics, then state becomes one of the authority. Okay, state 1, state 2, state 3, state 4, etc. बट इनके बिहेवियर को कंट्रोल करने के लिए कोई अथॉरिटी नहीं है फिक्स्ड ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ और हुज गाइडलाइंस आर स्ट्रिक्टली फॉलोड बाय द स्टेट. So that is called international system is in a state of anarchy. Now when the international system, so who will be the important actors in international? State is an important actor. State is, or the states are the important actor. Important, only important actor लिखे. Only important actors. States are only the important actors. मुझे आज ब्लू यूज करना है, चल नहीं रहा है, ठीक है. Yes, states are only important actors. Now, state is trying to promote its national interest. So international politics is nothing but politics of promotion of national interest by the state. So state is promoting its national interest. National interest. Next is the most significant national interest is security. Okay, the most important national interest is security. To secure the borders, to secure its people, to secure borders and people from the external threat. Okay, there is anarchy, therefore states are important. States are going to promote their national interest. And one of the most important significant national interest is security. Now, how will you secure? By acquiring the power. Okay, so national interest are being promoted. National interest, that is a security interest. National interest, that is security interest, are promoted by acquiring power. By acquiring power. Therefore, power is an important determinant in international politics. Okay, because only the power will help in securing your national interest, that is a security. Now see, the thing is, if every state is trying to acquire the power, how does it happen? Like say for example, state A. State A, it is a state, security interest is important, and therefore it started acquiring the power. Now the moment A started acquiring power, B feels insecure. B also start acquiring the power. Now this acquiring power is more, again A feel insecure and trying to match up with the B. So therefore international politics is a politics called as power politics. Okay? International politics, nature of international politics. Nature of international politics is power politics. Power politics. And the nature is conflicting. Conflicting means somebody's power may secure group A, but it creates a suspicion in the mind of B. So there is always a conflict of power. Okay, so right, the nature of international politics is power politics, and its nature is conflicting. Okay, there is a conflict. So international politics is in perpetual state of conflict. It is in the perpetual state of conflict. State of conflict, because there will not be an equilibrium of the power, and any country's acquisition of power will be misinterpreted as its offensive strategy, and therefore for the defense you start increasing the power. Somebody's defensive strategy again interpreted as an offense. So it becomes a perpetual state of conflict. Now, how do they define the peace? Peace is defined on the basis of balance of power. Okay, as long as there is balance, there is a peace in international politics. So they were trying to maintain the equilibrium of power, that no country should have a preponderance of power to an extent that it creates an hegemony. So the tendency of peace is to move towards the balance of power, that is nothing but achieving the equilibrium in the power of different states. I hope this much is clear. Okay, so अगर आप यहाँ पे देखोगे तो realism is a pessimism in international politics. No authority, okay, conflicting nature, power politics, fight is, or conflictual nature is perpetual, and the peace is also very narrowly defined. Peace is defined just as a balance of power. Balance of power, or in other words, the deterrence. Okay, peace through deterrence. Deterrence, that is, fear or terror is created into the, yes, minds of, here not law, because you will not implement your law on the other country. What you are going to fear through the power. Okay, the more the power you have, the more you are going to threat. In the contemporary times, it is with the nuclear weapons acquisition. If you acquire the nuclear weapon, that's the strongest deterrence that you can prevent the country from attack on your own country. Understood? So this is the realism picture. Now let's come to the liberal picture, or the liberalism. Now, liberalism also accepts that there is anarchy, but it is not a desperate anarchy. Desperate मतलब बहुत chaotic situation नहीं है. Even if there is anarchy, but there is a stability. But there exists stability. Stability. Now this anarchy is, there is an absence of central authority. But absence of central authority does not mean that there is a chaotic situation. By and large, there is a stability in international politics. Why there is so? Because they say that state are important actors, but state are not only the important actors. State plus international institutions. They recognize the presence of international institutions. States are not only the actors, but international institutions are also actors. Okay, and significant international institution here is United Nations. Because of this, there is a stability. Obvious thing that this stability exists because there is a certain international, this is not central authority which dictates, but this central authority helps the cooperation. Okay, in fact, the next point is the state promotes its national interest, and we have seen that the nature of international politics is conflicting. So from this point of view, nature of international politics nature of international politics is both conflict and cooperation. Conflict and cooperation. In fact, they want to focus upon cooperation is possible. Okay, cooperation. If you don't have international institutions, then there will be a conflict. But people can come together and form a single institution, and through which they can cooperate. Understood? So it is both conflictual and cooperation. Next is they say that peace. How the peace is there? See, peace यहाँ पे उन्होंने क्या किया है कि war नहीं होना चाहिए, और war तब नहीं होगा जब balance of power रहेंगे, so that people will consider that power of one country is almost equal to power of another. But they say that peace is not just absence of war. Okay, there should be a presence of something. That is, if we have the cooperation in international trade, investment, free flow of goods and services, free flow of people. So that is an actual peace. Mere absence of war is not an peace, but peace should be the presence of the cooperation also. Okay, so peace is not just related with absence of war, but also the cooperation in economic field, that is a trade, investment, free flow of goods, commerce, etc. Peace is not just absence of war, but also presence of cooperation, or presence of cooperation such as cooperation in commerce, trade, investment, flow of people. Okay, just a visa regime, a liberal visa regime, people can come across and etc. So this is the liberal interpretation of international relationship. Now, if you see the history, till First World War, the realism dominated the international politics, because if you see this French Revolution, American, so there was a fight going on, and there was a imperialism and colonialism. After the First World War, the first institution of cooperation which was created, that is a League of Nations. Now, theoretically, League of Nations has been created, although this was the humble beginning where international state came together and formed League of Nations. But if you see, League of Nations could not prevent the Second World War. Okay, Second World War. It means that during the interwar period, there was the existence of liberal institution, but it has failed to bring the liberal perspectives in practice. And it has given rise to the Second World War, because we see here, again, this colonialism, imperialism, fight between the nationalism, etc., that continued. Post Second World War, this institution was created or replaced. League of Nations was replaced by United Nations. And post Second World War is considered as actual beginning of liberal institutionalism, or you can say that the liberal perspectives. Again, you cannot completely say that it was only the liberal phase. Wherever there is a conflict and people try to resort to, it becomes a realism. So it can have a simultaneous feature. But if you see the liberalism, particularly in European countries, it's very easy for us to understand. Because if you see the First World War and Second World War, that is fought in the European countries particularly. And if you see here, there was at regional level, there is a rise of European Union. So European Union में ये देखा गया कि state when work in isolation, they will give rise to the fight, war, conflict. But when they come together with some institutional mechanism, cooperation is possible. And now you see the most integrated region of the world is European Union. Although there are certain problems, obviously, but still, by and large, they have proven that cooperation is possible, trade is possible. In fact, European Union has started with the iron and steel industry, commission. But then you see, finally, European Union was created. Then Schengen visa is there, where there is a free flow of the people also across the boundaries. Then you have European currency also, common European currency. So they have demonstrated that if there is a will, the positive or optimistic outlook can be taken. Okay, so that's about liberalism. Now come to the cosmopolitan approach. Cosmopolitanism has a very different view, okay, or you can say that the ideal view. In this case, they want to treat people not as a citizen of a particular country, but all are humans. Okay, so they bring the principle of humanism into the international politics. They considered all are human rather than just citizen of country, just citizens of particular country, citizen of particular country. So they are bringing the component of humanism or humanitarian angle. Humanitarian angle. So this is based upon the principle of universal brotherhood. This is based upon the principle of universal brotherhood, or this, the Indian philosophy of Vasudhaiya Kutumbakam. That is the cosmopolitan attitude. Universal brotherhood, then universal citizenship. Universal citizenship. Universal brotherhood, universal citizenship. So they have, now what about the states? They imagine that over a period of time, nation boundaries will be meaningless. Okay, they will slowly disappear, and the whole entity is more about the humanity, rather than people dividing on the basis of political entity called state. State will disappear, nation boundaries will insignificant, and there will be a universal brotherhood. This is a cosmopolitan approach, which is not the reality. Okay, we live in a very much nation state. Okay, boundaries are still intact, although the forces of globalization certainly challenging the rigid boundaries of the nation state. Forces of globalization. But nonetheless, globalization has not completely given rise to this. We all are still controlled by our state laws. Okay, so these are the three perspectives that you have to keep in mind, because whenever the question is asked or any issue is asked, it will help you in understanding why particular group of people are saying one particular vision, second particular vision, third particular vision, what is. Because एक आपको लिखवाया था इंडियन थिंकर्स में कॉस्मोपॉलिटन थिंकर्स, तो वी हैव रिटन देयर दिस रविंद्रनाथ टैगोर, okay, M.N. Roy, okay, yes, Swami Vivekananda, particularly this with respect to the universal brotherhood. Understood? So these are the broad three perspectives, just to get sensitized with you. There is a cosmopolitan में एक theory है constructivism, okay, social constructivism. So social constructivism का कहना है कि ये सब construct रहते हैं कि आपने ये construct बना दिया, अनार्की है, fight है, तो वो वैसे कर दिया. Social constructivism से they say that another world is possible. Okay, another world is possible means more friendly and on the basis of peace and universal brotherhood. They have the vision, cosmopolitan vision for the future society. Understood? So that's about the perspective. Now write the different issues in international relation, ethical issues. Yes, any question with regard to if anybody has not understood anything or any question? No? Okay. Right, ethical issues in international relation. This is otherwise very important for your base of IR classes also. Yes, tell me what are the ethical issues that you think hog the attention of international community in recent time or otherwise. क्या ethical issues हैं? Huh? Refugees, yes, refugees very important. Acquisition of nuclear weapon, yes, very good. What else? Terrorism, yes, that's the single most fundamental aspect in contemporary time. Terrorism. What else? Insurgency. What does the insurgency mean? Illegal, that is a political interventions. That is the interventions. Okay. North Korea, huh? Nuclear issues, broadly that is the aspect of nuclear issues, nuclear weapons. Yes, what else? फ्रीडम ऑफ तिब्बत, खाली तिब्बत आप दलाई लामा हैं और नहीं नहीं, व्हाट आई एम सेइंग इज देयर इज अ इशू ऑफ you can say that independence on the basis of ethnicity across the globe. There are lot many countries. Yes, Palestine hai, Catalonia in present times, यूक्रेन का जो है वो तो एक्वायर कर लिया है अभी रशिया ने. ओके, कश्मीर है या नहीं है? कश्मीर है या नहीं है? नागालैंड है या नहीं है? तो लोगों को तोड़ने का काम है. यस, एनी काइंड ऑफ यू कैन जस्ट पुट इट एज द इथनिक क्राइसिस. विल डिस्कस व्हाट एल्स. ओके, हेजेमनी ऑफ ग्रेट पावर्स. हाँ, yes, that's true. That is a north and south divide. Okay, developed and developing countries across the board you will see, whether it is a WTO, IMF, World Bank, environmental debates, all international forums, you will see this aspect that there is a divide in between north and south divide. So yes, natural resources, particularly the global commons करके एक entity है. We will discuss what is global commons, and otherwise environmental issues. There are environmental degradation, that's also the ethical issues. What else? Antarctica, yes, certainly global commons का part है. Encroachment of sovereignty. Can you give an example?
Like the Belt and Road Initiative by the Belt and Road Initiative created by the China that
तो उनकी वो सोवेरियन पावर है, आपकी सोवरेनिटी के ऊपर कैसे हो गया?
the developing countries that because of that the developing countries their sovereignty also.
So it is a your sovereign decision whether to join the Belt and Road Initiative.
Without consulting the developing countries.
Okay, fine. There is a component that is China is using economic clout to dilute the political decision making of the small countries. Certainly. Human trafficking, good. Dominance. Yemen issue. All sort of ethnic conflicts across the board. यमन है तो सीरिया भी है, अफगानिस्तान भी है. रोहिंग्या क्राइसिस किसी ने नहीं बोला क्योंकि हमारे ऊपर बर्डन बढ़ जाएगा इसलिए. Yes, natural resources. Okay. Yes. Dumping of goods. You can. That is a trade relationship में है. Yes, certainly. WTO के अंदर जो भी issues है, they are also the ethical issues. Patent issues, particularly with regard to the generic drugs. Yes, write the list first. So first you can write that the issue of war. War है या नहीं है ethical issue? हो रहा है war. Second World War खत्म हो गया तो war has come to an end. अच्छा, अफगानिस्तान में जो अमेरिका कर रहा है वो डिप्लोमेटिक वॉर है. सीरिया में जो चल रहा है वो डिप्लोमेटिक वॉर है. Yes, that diplomatic war. Yes, conventional war are redundant. A new form of war are there. Second important is political interventions. In fact, it's a new form of war only. Political interventions. Sometimes they are masked with so-called humanitarian interventions. Humanitarian interventions. What is humanitarian interventions? For the sake of humanity. Yes, but the point is so-called humanitarian are not so humanitarian. They have certain realistic. जहाँ पे oil है, okay, वहाँ पे जो है humanitarian interventions करने की जरूरत पड़ जाती है. Okay, US is hungry of oil. Always remember this. Okay. Third is issue of terrorism. Terrorism or religious fundamentalism. Religious fundamentalism. Next is issue of weapons of mass destruction. Weapons of mass destruction. Issue of weapons of mass destruction, WMDs. our focus will be particularly on the nuclear weapons. Why nuclear? Why not chemical and biological? Hmm? Yes? न्यू इमर्जिंग न्यूक्लियर वेपन हिरोशिमा नागासाकी पे कब हुआ था? फिर भी नया है। हाँ, नहीं ठीक है, 50s आर कंटेम्प्रेरी बोला जाता है। मॉडर्न इंडिया आपका कब से स्टार्ट होता है? तो मॉडर्न है क्या? ठीक है, एनीवेज लेट्स नॉट गो इनटू दैट। व्हाट इज कंटेम्प्रेरी इज नेवर बीन डिफाइंड। यस, व्हाई द क्वेश्चन इज केमिकल एंड बायोलॉजिकल। There is already an international conventions for the elimination. There is no legal, अभी वो use नहीं होते हैं. Okay, there are already the bans. Nuclear के ऊपर हम देखेंगे. People still use or have the nuclear powers. Next is issue with respect to refugee. In fact, this is the single most important crisis after terrorism in present time. Refugee crisis, problems of refugees. Then next is issue of democratization of international order. Democratization of international order or international institution. Order or institutions. What is included and why it is an ethical issue? What does it mean? And why it is ethical issue? Yes, यूनाइटेड नेशन सिक्योरिटी काउंसिल में P5 कंट्रीज है, तो यूएन में जो है, यूनाइटेड नेशन में बहुत ज़्यादा डेमोक्रेटिक रिप्रेजेंटेशन नहीं है. इट इज़ बाय ओलिगार्की ऑफ P5. वैसे ही वर्ल्ड बैंक और IMF में भी ऐसे इश्यूज है. देर इज़ नो इक्वालिटी. ओके, देर इज़ नो इक्वालिटी इन दिस इंस्टीट्यूशन. सो some of the institutions are deciding for the whole international community. Next is 7th one is ये लिखे issues in international funding. Ethical issues of international funding. International funding. Next, environmental issues. Next, issues within WTO, but we are more focusing upon the issues of patent. Okay, that too with related to the public health concerns, that is issues related with the generic drugs. ये drugs मतलब medicine वाले drugs हैं, ठीक है? Patent. Then 10th is issue of global commons. Issue of global commons. And 11th is ethnic conflicts. Ethnic conflicts is by and large will be covered in this political interventions, but just complete the list. Ethnic conflicts. Ethnic conflicts. That is demand for secessionism, etc. Demand for secessionism, political independence, political autonomy, etc., etc. Okay, so these are all the issues of ethical importance in international relations. So let's start with the war. Okay. War. What is ethics of war? See, when I say ethics of war, it means that you have to discuss dimensions, good, bad, etc. See, I start with one statement, which is one of my favorite one. No war is a good war, no peace is a bad peace. Okay. So even when there is a justification, this is a US president has said in Nobel committee, that no war is a good war, no peace is a bad peace. हाँ लिखो, आप भी स्टार्ट करो, मतलब कोई इसमें गलती नहीं है यहाँ, लिखिए, एथिक्स का पेपर है. No war is a good war, no peace is a bad peace. Now, what it is trying to say is the conventional war that were fought, which has been culminated into so-called great wars, First and the Second World War. And finally, the international community has realized that war is not bringing a lot of prosperity, peace, stability, happiness. And therefore, something like United Nations was created or League of Nations was created. So, what is the other side where we see no war is a good war and no peace is bad peace? So it means that implicitly we are trying to say war is not desirable or correct. So write some disadvantages or the negative aspects of the war. Likhe. Negative aspects of the war: bloodshed, violence, loss of human life. If you consider they are precious, okay. Some few humans are precious and few are not. Bloodshed, violence, loss of human life, loss of material resources, okay, material resource and property, loss of material life में दोनों आ जाएगा, mortality and morbidity. What is morbidity? कल बहुत मैकेनिकल इंजीनियर क्या बोल रहे थे, अब बताइए मॉर्बिडिटी क्या होता है? वैसे मैकेनिकल इंजीनियर गलत नहीं था, फ्लाईओवर के ऊपर से गाड़ियां चली जाती है वो बोल रहा था मैं. ओके, आई वाज थिंकिंग डीप. ओके, सम मैकेनिकल इंजीनियर वाज ट्राइंग टू क्रिएट सेफ्टी ऑफ व्हीकल्स, दैट्स व्हाई ही इज क्रिएटिंग द गुड फ्लाईओवर. एनीवेज, मॉर्बिडिटी मीन्स इंजुरी. किसी का हाथ टूट गया, पैर टूट गया, okay, apahiz ho gaya, physically challenged. So war, it's bringing not a very prosperous material resources and property loss. Diversion of countries' resources. इसमें है, लेकिन what is the diversion of countries' resources? Because the whole attention will be given to the war. Countries' resources still have very meager resources and they are diverted to the war. In fact, you see, during the time of Britishers also, Bengal famine मैंने किसी class में explain किया था, ठीक है? So Bengal famine is also diversion of countries' resources where the people are dying also, but you are going for the war. Diversion of political instability. Political instability. Psychological impact भी रहता है war का. When you lose the war, win the war, it creates a sort of psychological impact. Like, for example, China, whatever it does, we remember 1962. Yes, it happens. There is a psychological impact of the war also. Okay. So, political instability, and in fact, it requires a lot of time to get back to the original status quo position, which was there before the war. So, post-war construction is not that easy because lines of communication, goods, processes, people's lives, rehabilitation, construction of the houses, roads, it's a huge effort. So, in fact, this is why it was social impact भी है, जैसे war widows and this social impacts में आप लिख सकते हो. Issues with respect to war widows when the soldier die. So there are a lot many problems there. Okay, I think I must have told this. Facebook के ऊपर एक फोटो आता है. एक mother is standing with the kid, holding the hands, and then this is an empty space और इसमें army का dress लगा हुआ है खाली. And this is a very powerful picture. This is the price of the war. Okay, बहुत सारे emotions दिखाए गए हैं कि how the mother and the child are left behind when the soldier die, which the leaders should take into account. Okay, in fact वो Bismarck का एक statement बताया था आपको, that when you look into the eyes of dying soldiers, you will never think of going for the war. And this is coming from the person who has fought the war throughout the life. Ashoka, Kalinga war, when he went to the Kalinga to see the actual position on the ground, then obviously he thought that this is something I do not endorse. And throughout his life, then he started propagating the Dhamma. Okay, so these are, अरे ये लिखिए थोड़ा ethics में है तो एक दो डाल दो ये, मतलब ये तो facts है. Example of Ashoka, example of Bismarck वगैरह डाल सकते हैं आप. Victors and vanquished both get ruined. Only difference in degrees. Okay, पाकिस्तान के 10 सोल्जर मर रहे तो आपके भी 5 सोल्जर मर रहे हैं. Should we celebrate that 10 minus 5 is equal to 5? Or should we remorse that 5 people have died? All of your understanding. ये पाकिस्तान के 5 मर गए, हमारे ये हो गए 5 से जीत हो गई हमारे. Okay, that's a very narrow interpretation of war. Okay, human lives are precious. Soldiers are there to defend the country. They are not there to die, okay, for every now and then. That point has to be taken into account. Okay, so these are some of the aspects of the war. So you can bring this side of the war. Now we are coming to a next interesting thing, that is doctrine of just war. Okay, doctrine of just war. Now, this is a very paradoxical, but because war are happening, so country will try to justify it. Now, just war doctrine. Now, this whatever we have discussed, this war theories and etc. These are with respect to the conventional wars, जो two sovereign countries के बीच में for the sake of imperialism and colonialism fought किए जाते थे. Just war doctrine is coming as a new philosophy in order to justify. In fact, this is closely related with the political interventions. That see, the first try and understand what is the present status of war. Present status of war, United Nations create इसलिए किया गया है ताकि there should be a no war. Now, the only thing that you can intervene into the other country is if the other country's human right violations are happening at a mass level. Now, there can be 2-3 possibilities when this can happen and international community can intervene. First of all, there is a sovereign state. Okay, and sovereign state is incapable of that is resolving the dispute or the human right violations. A state is too weak to protect its own people. Like say for example, यहाँ पे शिया सुन्नी है, दोनों fight कर रहे हैं, but state is incapable of stopping the fight between Shia Sunni. Hindu Muslim है, दोनों fight कर रहे हैं, state is incapable of doing it. Then in this case, international community can intervene in order to protect the human rights of people. Second can be state itself is committing the atrocities, which happens in many cases, dictatorial regime. That state is one party and itself has become a human right violator. This is again a second case where you can intervene. The intervention requires United Nations Security Council's approval to intervene into the international sphere. So otherwise, one state cannot wage a war against second state in order to form a colony or etc., which was there in the past. This is a decolonization के process के बाद ये possible नहीं है. Now the only excuse is if there is a human right violation happening, and in this human right violation, either the state is a mute spectator or incapable of controlling, or state itself is carrying out the human right violation atrocities. Understood? So that's the principle. We see that there is a possibility of, that's why it is called interventions, political intervention or humanitarian interventions. Political intervention and humanitarian interventions, that an international community can intervene into the sovereign country if there are mass human right violations. So we have formed the basis of intervention. But the point is, what should be the just war then? How we should go for it? What are the principles, etc., etc. So you can just write, that is just war principle has 3 pillars. Just war principle has 3 pillars. Three pillars, three principles. Okay. So this is a Latin word. The first word is just ad bello. Or bellum. Just ad bellum. That is before war, what should be the just ad bellum or the before war. Before war क्या क्या situation होनी चाहिए? It means that when you are providing justification for war, you should tell what are those circumstances which necessitate the war and what are the principles that should be followed. So first principle you can use, you can write that the first principle is war should be used as a last resort. War should be used as a last resort. Last resort. What does it mean? When other options of peaceful negotiation, diplomacy, or any other democratic option of resolution of conflicts have come to an end, and the situation on the ground is still not improved. Okay, so right. That war should be used. War should be used as a last resort. This means. In the first place, democratic means of resolution of conflict. Democratic means of resolution of conflict. That is diplomacy and negotiation. Diplomacy and negotiation. Democratic means of resolution of conflict should be tried and exhausted to resolve the political conflicts. To resolve the political conflict. Only when above option fail, and the situation does not improve on the ground, the war can be or in bracket intervention can be resorted to. War or in bracket intervention can be resorted to. Now, this means that first you should give a try through the political negotiation and diplomatic negotiation. Next is the intervention. वॉर को ही हम इंटरवेंशन बोल रहे हैं जस्ट वॉर की थियरीज में. बिकॉज इंटरवेंशन शुड बी सैंक्शनड बाय international community. In bracket you can write United Nations Security Council. United Nations Security Council. It should be sanctioned by this. Okay, so these are the two aspects which you should say that yes. It means that unilateral intervention should not be there. And first, direct strategy of war should not be used. Unilateral मतलब क्या है? कि you are not taking the consensus of international community and unilaterally waging the war. So that's the first. Second, you can write just in bello. Just in bello. That is during the war. Just in bello. Latin words hai. Just in bello. During war. Now, during war, what should be the principle? First principle is proportionate use of the force. Proportionate or limited use of the force. Proportionate or limited use of the force. Limited use of the force. So the force should be only that much which is required to neutralize the target. Okay. ऐसा नहीं है कि आपने ब्रह्मास्त्र आपके पास है एंशिएंट मेडाइवल में आपने तैयार की है तो उसको यूज करना चालू कर दो. ठीक है. क्या हो गया? ठंडा है, एसी बंद कर देना है उसका. हाँ, ये भी बंद कर दो, थोड़ा सा कम कर दो, 25 कर दो, इंक्रीज कर दो इसका टेम्परेचर. 25 इज फाइन, 26, 27. अरे कैमरा है कि ठीक कर रहे हो या वहां से रिमोट कंट्रोल है? ठीक है. प्रोपोर्शनेट यूज ऑफ द फोर्स मीन्स अगर आपका एनिमी है तो जाके वहां पे न्यूक्लियर बम गिरा दिया. दैट्स अ डिसप्रोपोर्शनेट यूज ऑफ द फोर्स बिकॉज in fact you will understand it's in the second part, proportionate use of the force. Point number 2 is non-combatant should not be attacked. Non-combatant means those who are civilians will not be attacked. Non-combatant or civilians should not be attacked. It means that innocent people should not be attacked. Okay, that is particularly with respect to the target, whichever is the target, they should be. So principle that waging a war against the enemy does not mean that you start killing the innocent people. Okay, so proportionate use of the force and not attacking on the civilian population. Okay, then the third component, that is just post bello. Just JUS, just post bellum लिखें, BULLUM, just post bellum, that is a post war. This involves the reconstruction of the war ravaged country. This involves reconstruction of war ravaged, RAVAGED. Ravaged means destroyed. War ravaged country. Okay, this involves also the political negotiation also. This also involves the political negotiation to bring the peace. That is peace treaties. That is political negotiation to establish the peace. परपेचुअल पीस इस्टेब्लिश करने के लिए पॉलिटिकल नेगोशिएशन. वॉर रेपरेशंस रहते हैं. प्रिजन, ओके, यू कैन राइट प्रिजनर्स ऑफ वॉर शुड बी हैंडल्ड विथ केयर, दे शुड बी फ्रीड. प्रिजनर्स ऑफ वॉर, POWs, ओके, देयर इज अ ह्यूमैनिटेरियन ट्रीटमेंट टू बी गिवन टू द prisoners of war. Humanitarian treatment to the prisoners of war. Okay, so these are some of the principles that you can use. Just add bellum में एक और एक add कर दो. Limited objective लिखिए first में, थोड़ा सा just add कर दो. Although it is self-explanatory when we say, but just add limited objective. First में add कर दो. Limited objective means conventional objective क्या रहता था कि political imperialism or establishing the colony. That cannot be the objective. Objective is only to resolve the crisis or target, neutralize the enemy. That's it. Okay. Conventional objective was with the territorial expansion, territorial acquisition, establishment of political power, reducing it into the colony, establishing the political hegemony. So these are not the present notion of the war. Okay. War, a very, very limited one, that is to neutralize the enemy. Understood? So these are the doctrines of just war, but none of the doctrine is followed in practice. Okay, that's for sure. Yes, this is a theory. If you read first क्या लिखा हुआ है, that is, it should be used as a last resort. Most of the times, the national interest is generally taken into account, and America is a good example where they don't mind going under the NATO forces without even taking into account the United Nations. वो पूछ लेते एक बार, ठीक है, those who are not with us are against us. Okay, that's the statement where the George W. Bush has made when 9/11 was attacked. If you are not with us, you are against us. We are going because we think that the international security and is in danger. Okay, so most of the times it has happened that sovereign countries rather go in checking their own national interest rather than the international community's interest. Second क्या था? That is इंटरवेंशन सैंक्शन वही हो गया, दैट इज यूनाइटेड नेशन सिक्योरिटी सैंक्शन में भी बहुत सारे प्रॉब्लम है. इवन व्हेन देयर इज ऑब्वियस वायलेशन तो रशिया चाइना क्या करेंगे, उसको ब्लॉक कर देंगे बिकॉज दे वांट टू टेक द पॉलिटिकल माइलेज आउट ऑफ द कंट्रीज. लाइक से फॉर एग्जांपल, क्लासिकल एग्जांपल इज द सीरिया. In initial case, America wanted that United Nations Security Council resolution should be put so as to remove the Assad. But obviously, the Putin has a very different plan because he wanted to now strengthen the Russia's position in the contemporary time, which it slots after the dissolution of USSR. So that politics also comes in the United Nations Security Council because of the veto power. So veto power के कारण every state is trying to manipulate as per their national interest rather than the interest of the international community. Third is limited objective, that is only to neutralize. Again, there is always a geopolitical and geoeconomic consideration. Oil is the most important consideration. Geopolitical consideration, your political hegemony becomes an important consideration. Observing the proportionate force and not sparing civil population. See, this is a very, very difficult because once you are attacked, okay, you don't know where the public are staying and etc. And invariably there is a innocent people getting killed. But the USA term this as a collateral damage. Okay, collateral damage bound to happen when there is a attack. But when US soldier get killed, it is a human right violation. Okay, when Afghan civilian population get killed, it becomes a collateral damage. See, one of the reason why they have come up with the drone is not just about the technology. It's also about minimizing the collateral damage. Because see, the thing is, when you are going for war, you need to justify your action to the international community. Now, how will you justify your action when you are killing 2 terrorists and along with some 40 innocent population is getting killed? Now, it's very difficult for any country to justify such action and claim that, look, we have killed the 2 terrorists. But people will going to ask you, you have killed also the innocent people. So morally, it becomes a very difficult. So use of the drone was not just the bringing sophistication, but also to bring the precision to the war, that the target is fixed. जैसे अभी देखिए मुल्ला उमर बाहर आएगा तो एक ही ऐसे इतना प्रिसीजन रहता है. In order to give that accuracy, that is because in order to observe or minimize collateral damage. Post-war reconstruction, most of the times again political. But yes, these are the principles which requires to be followed in practice. War as a strategy, we have started with saying that no war is a good war and no peace is a bad peace. So you give any name or color, just war, justified war, but ultimately it's all the different stakeholders are promoting their own self-interest. At the same time, whatever we have discussed, loss of human life, material resources, etc., they remain there. Okay, you can only minimize, but you cannot eliminate. For the elimination, you require absolute not intervening into the countries. Okay, but anyways, that's the reality. Second thing is, if you see this just war, they also has this aspect of just war, the religious philosophies also. Like in case of Mahabharata, there is something called Dharma Yuddha. Now, what is a Dharma Yuddha? Dharma Yuddha is something which is fought for the righteous purpose. Okay, so I think I must have mentioned this point where the Arjuna was about to fight with the Kauravas. He said that it is morally incorrect on my part to attack on my brothers. But then what the Krishna has said is it is a just war. Okay, that it is the war of truth over the evil. It is a triumph of truth over the evil. So you have to come out of this moral dilemma that they are your brothers, but you have to see them, they are the evils. So you have to go and attack. So you see that religious underpinnings are also there in case of just war. भगवद गीता पूरी वहाँ पे छाप दी उन्होंने, मतलब हाँ वही है. Christianity, you see something called holy war. Can war be a holy? bloodshed, violence, this and that. But yes, it is a holy war. Holy war was not jihad. Okay, holy war again. So you see any religion. अभी बुद्धिज्म भी नहीं पीछे रह गया. रोहिंग्यास, ठीक है? Rohingyas के ऊपर now they say that Rohingyas are disturbing the peace of Buddhism. Therefore, Rohingyas should be eliminated and put to the disadvantage in order to create a peace. So, if you see the interpretation, there can be a possibility of radical interpretation using the religious texts in order to justify the bloodshed and the violence under the name of different doctrines. Okay. Now, we are going to see that this theory or the philosophy of just war is being roughly articulated in the United Nations principle of right to protect principle. So just write the principle. R2P principle. इसको ऐसे ही लिखा जाता है. R2P. R2P doctrine or principle. R2P doctrine or principle. That is responsibility to protect principle. Responsibility to protect principle. Responsibility to protect principle. Now you can just write in one line, that is this principle is used by the United Nations. It's used by United Nations, or in bracket UNSC, United Nations Security Council, oblique international community, to resolve political crisis, to resolve crisis in different countries, Okay. So the first point of this principle is, again, this has three principles or three steps. R2P has three principles. First is, it is a responsibility of the state. It is a responsibility of the state to protect its citizens. It is a responsibility of a state. Underline this word state. State is the sovereign state. It is a responsibility of a state to protect its citizen. So the first chance for the crisis will be given to the state only. Second is, it is a responsibility of international community. It is a responsibility of international community to assist the state. It is the responsibility of international community to assist the state. इसमें भी proactive कौन है? State ही है. So international community is still not intervening. You are just externally supporting in order to increase the capacity of the state to tackle the problem. But all decisions should be again taken by the state. Now the third, after 1 and 2, after following step 1 and 2, if state fails to tackle the crisis, then international community can take up proactive steps. First, they should use political and diplomatic means to resolve the crisis. If this fails, international community If this fail, comma, international community can resort to use of coercive method. If this fail, then international community can resort to use of coercive. Coercive is forced one. COERCIV. Coercive methods. Okay. They can apply diplomatic and economic sanctions. They can apply diplomatic and economic sanctions. Military intervention should be used as a last resort. They can apply diplomatic and economic sanctions. And military intervention should be used as a last resort. See, coercion method is not just about the military interventions. Even the economic sanctions and diplomatic sanctions fall under the category of coercive method, because you are forcing now. You are not telling them through the negotiation. Negotiation already हो चुके हैं. So पहला है कि स्टेट को अपॉर्चुनिटी दे दो. सेकेंड है इंटरनेशनल कम्युनिटी शुड असिस्ट देम. थर्ड, इंटरनेशनल कम्युनिटी शुड यूज द डेमोक्रेटिक मेथड्स. And fourth, they should use the coercive methods. In coercive methods, diplomatic and economic sanction first and the military intervention last. When military intervention will be there, you should follow these principles. ये just war principles when the intervention. इसका ही पहला ये वो हुआ था कि that it is used as a last resort. It should be sanctioned, limited objective, limited use of force, civilians are spared, and post-war reconstruction strategy should be there in order to bring the peace and stability. Okay, understood. So these are some of the aspects of the war. So ethics of war. तो war ऐसा है. This is how they proceed with it. In fact, there is a very good speech, if you have time. Barack Obama got the Nobel Peace Prize during his first tenure. So there was a lot of criticism because US president was in the midst of the two wars. It was a war on the Iraq, which was yet to get finally concluded, and Afghan war was also going on. So people say that how can a president who is in the midst of two wars gets the Nobel Peace Prize? Now, Obama went there and he has made one of the wonderful speech. Okay, तो उसमें अगर आप speech देखोगे तो speech is divided into two slots. Okay, the first half of the speech, he completely speaks about non-violence. He speaks about how the war, जो हमने discuss किया था, how war brings the bloodshed and this and that. In fact, he quotes Mahatma Gandhi, he quotes Martin Luther King, etc., etc. But in the second half, he will slightly jump to a very important question. He says that peace and non-violence are fine, but what about when the innocent people are being killed by the radical elements? Now, should international community be a mute spectator when the innocent people are getting killed and when the democratic and diplomatic means of negotiation with the terrorist is failing? Now, in such situation, what a country can do? Should we be a silent, mute spectator, or should we take certain interventions in order to creep? That is actually the justification of just war. That he is trying to say that we will intervene, but intervene with the limited purpose. We will intervene with the limited force and to neutralize the enemy in order to stop the human rights violations. But again, America, yes, Barack Obama, there can be no doubt about him. But the point is, on the ground, it's next to impossible to follow what he is speaking through the speech also. Okay, this violation, the innocent Afghan people have killed, that's the reality. Along with obviously the member of Al-Qaeda and Taliban. You will see that tremendous bloodshed, etc. in case of Afghanistan. Now you think of, if this was the intention, now they are talking about the good Taliban and bad Taliban. Let us integrate. It shows the frustration on part of the US also, that you cannot win over the domestic politics of a country, particularly now in this. Afghanistan का तो track record है, ठीक है? जो भी वहाँ पे आता है डूब के ही चला जाता है, मतलब डिस्ट्रॉय हो गए. यू टेकन ब्रिटिशर्स, ओके, हिस्ट्री में पढ़ा होगा अफगान पॉलिसी, पूरा रुइन होके बाहर निकला है. रशिया पूरा 50 साल कोल्ड वॉर का सुपर पावर था. ओके, व्हेन इट इंटरवेंड इनटू द अफगानिस्तान, इट गॉट एंड डिस्ट्रॉयड, और फिर वहाँ घर जाके डिसोल्यूशन ऑफ यूएसएसआर ही हो गया. America has intervened. 10 years of war now, America says that there is a dignified exist. It is looking out for a way out to come out of the Afghan. There is a one saying that Afghanistan is a place of quagmire. Quagmire is a very confused and complex situation where even angel fear to trade. Even angel do not dare to trade. Now that's because of there is a typical culture. Afghanistan में warlord culture है. वॉरलॉर्ड कल्चर में क्या है कि देर इज़ नो सेंट्रल अथॉरिटी. देर इज़ लाइक ए ट्राइबल कल्चर में क्या है, आपकी इमीडिएट जो हेड है उसको आप गॉड समझते हो. सो एनी सेंट्रल अथॉरिटी विच इज़ गोइंग टू कम, यू आर नॉट गोइंग टू एक्सेप्ट द एनी एक्सटर्नल अथॉरिटी. सो दैट्स अ कल्चर, एंड फॉर दैट पर्टिकुलर कल्चर दे कैन गो टू एन एनी एक्सटेंट. You see, what the America has not understood is when Russia, they have held, in fact the Taliban is nothing but the construction of America itself, because they wanted that during the time of Cold War कि रशिया का डिस्ट्रॉय हो जाए. एक CIO की रिपोर्ट है, पहले इन्होंने देखा कि रशिया हैज़ इंटरवेन इनटू द USSR इंटरवेन इनटू अफगानिस्तान. अफगानिस्तान के लोकल पीपल जो है अपने हथियार से ही फाइट कर रहे थे रशिया के खिलाफ. CIA ने रिपोर्ट निकाला कि यार ये तो बहुत बढ़िया फाइट कर रहे हैं, ठीक है, ऑल्दो विद द गन बोज एंड एरोज दे आर फाइटिंग. सो CIA ने बोला कि अमेरिका में एक रिपोर्ट है, ऑब्वियसली क्लासिफाइड रिपोर्ट है, कि वाई नॉट टू गिव देम द वेपन्स. ओके, इतना अगर इनमें जज्बा है तो अगर इसमें अगर गन्स एंड बुलेट्स दिया जाए तो मज़ा आ जाएगा, ठीक है. सो द होल वॉर इज वेपन्स वेर प्रोवाइडेड बाय द अमेरिका, मनी इज प्रोवाइडेड बाय सऊदी, एंड सॉइल इज प्रोवाइडेड बाय पाकिस्तान. तो इन तीनों की कहानी से तालिबान आया. तालिबान ने expulsion of USSR, but they failed to understand why they have expelled the USSR, because it was a foreign power. So इनको लगा कि अब पपेट हम बनाएंगे. पपेट बना लिया इन्होंने, वो गन से वेस्ट की तरफ करके चालू कर दिया. Because they have not understood that foreign power in case of Afghanistan is not readily acceptable. So they have done weapon, इनके ही वेपन थे. अगर आप BBC की डॉक्यूमेंट्री देखोगे तो अफगानिस्तान के लोग जो गन्स एंड बुलेट से फाइट करते हैं वो 1987 में मैन्युफैक्चरिंग है उनकी. दैट इज़ एन अमेरिकन वेपन्स विच वाज ब्रॉट टू एक्सपल द रशिया. तो वही वेपन से उन्होंने उधर मारना चालू कर दिया. एंड देन ऑब्वियसली दिस ओसामा बिन लादेन हैज़ एन इंटरेस्टिंग स्टोरी. वो इतना इस्लामिक रेडिकलाइजेशन का बहुत बड़ा फैन नहीं है. आई एम नॉट सेइंग दैट ही इज़ नॉट रेडिकलाइज्ड, बट द पॉइंट वाज मुल्ला उमर वाज द पर्सन हु वाज द हेड ऑफ तालिबान. ही वांटेड टू ब्रिंग द शरिया. और ये जो था इंजीनियर आपका क्या नाम है, उसामा बिन लादेन, ही वॉज द स्मार्टेस्ट गाय. ही ओनली थॉट दैट मुल्ला उमर इज वेरी डेडिकेटेड, ओके, फॉर अगेंस्ट द वेस्टर्न फोर्सेस. ही वांटेड टू टेक रिवेंज. नाउ ही आइडेंटिफाइड दिस इज द मैन whom I can use as my front cover. और वहाँ पे हमारे जैसे है ना कि अतिथि देवो भव माना जाता है, तो अफ़गानिस्तान में भी एक है कि अगर आप जाओगे तो आपको अतिथि देवो भव होगा. तो Osama bin Laden knew this fact. If I will be under the Mullah Omar, and Mullah Omar taken a swear that I will not let anybody to touch the Osama bin Laden. Osama bin Laden started working. Mullah Omar was not at all having the idea who is this man. He just thought that कि इंजीनियर है, थोड़ा सा जो है मेरे जो गोल्स है उसमें थोड़ा टेक्नोलॉजी IT वगैरह डाल देगा. Yes, कब तक नहीं पता था उसको. 9/11 अटैक हुआ. The news started flashing, Osama bin Laden has attack on 9/11, WTC, etc. Mullah Omar started laughing like anything. My foot soldier is creating an world trade. They are nonsense. US are stupid. They are not understanding. He is my foot soldier. 3 दिन के बाद उनको पता चला कि भाई इसने ही अटैक किया है वो. By that time, because he was so smart that he knew that I will not have any disadvantage. तो ये सब जो politics था, it's because that अफगानिस्तान का एक nature है soil का, okay. That if you do not understand, then obviously history keeps on repeating. The only actors get changed, but the ruin is permanent. अब ट्रम्प बोल रहे हैं कि हम और थोड़ा इंक्रीज करेंगे. करिए इंक्रीज, अब देखिए क्या होता है, ठीक है. That's not that easy country. Anyways, so that's a part of your IR classes. Let's move on to the next part. Terrorism we have discussed a lot. इसमें ethical angle एक ही है. There are two basically angle. One is the religious tolerance is required. Okay, this fight of religious war cannot be won on the battlegrounds for sure. they are going to be remain counterproductive. Yes, please, you want positives of war, like
Like for example, in European countries, the World War gave more empowerment to women as men was not there, so women.
no, which sort of women empowerment when they don't have the husband at their home? Emotional और social discontent बहुत ज़्यादा हुआ था उस टाइम में. Working is not just about women empowerment. When you have not a breadwinner, when you have the one which मतलब जो आपका family member आपको चला गया है, उस sort of empowerment we don't want. We want a person should be there and tell that take the responsibility.
War is not a justification for their. I mean, I'm not giving war as a justification for their empowerment, but we can say that war has a repercussion that they led to them.
See, it's like saying kill the female infanticide because population of the country will come down. Okay, so that's will not be a very good justification. It might have given rise to, but it's very difficult to say that women empowerment should be brought in there. We don't want women empowerment to brought in this way by eliminating the soldiers. चलो मतलब इंडिया में women empowerment मोदी जी ने बोल दिया चलो एलओसी पे सब लोग वहां पे मर गए सब बेटी बचाओ बेटी पढ़ाओ. No, we don't want that sort of women empowerment. हाँ.
सर वैसे ही चाइना की जो माइग्रेंट रिलेशन थिंकिंग है चाइना की लेके हमारी स्ट्रेटजी को बदलना चाहिए या सेम वही रहेगा?
We will discuss that point. Okay, एक है हमारे we will discuss इंडिया चाइना रिलेशनशिप इसमें आ जाएगा. ठीक है, न्यूक्लियर वेपन में भी है, न्यूक्लियर वेपन में आ जाएगा. Okay, why we have become a nuclear weapon country? What is the China's relationship? ठीक है, वहाँ पे discuss. Yes, come to this religious fundamentalism. This we have discussed. Just 2 points here needs to be brought in. First point is किसी भी religion की दूसरे religion के ऊपर hegemony is going to bring the difficulties. That's why the fundamental principle you require is religious tolerance and cultural tolerance. Okay, we have discussed this in case of Swami Vivekananda has spoken about that every religion is superior and we must extend the religious tolerance and cultural tolerance. Second is radical interpretation of any religion should be avoided. Okay, radical interpretation should be avoided, or those who interpret, obviously the action should be taken against them. First is need of extending the religious and cultural tolerance. Need of increasing the religious and cultural tolerance. Second is radical. Okay, those who are radically interpreting. Okay, उनके लिए there should be a strict measures, strict legal measures, international measures, right from hate speeches to everything. There should be certain curb on the radical interpreters. Third is promoting the interfaith and interreligious dialogues. Promoting the interfaith and interreligious dialogues. Okay, and international community should join hands against the scourge of international terrorism. International community should cooperate collectively. Against the scourge of international terrorism. Scourge, that is the ill effects, okay, or problem against terrorism. लिखो, छोड़ दो scourge of international terrorism. Against terrorism. But ये जो international cooperation है लिखने में बहुत easy है, but it's next to impossible because definition of terrorism is not agreed upon. Okay, जैसे इंडिया ने और there is a demand for having a comprehensive convention of international terrorism. CCIT की बहुत demand है. Okay, comprehensive convention on international terrorism. But this comprehensive convention of international terrorism start with the first, that is define terrorism. Now definition of terrorism, terrorist for one country becomes the freedom fighter of another country. इजराइल के लिए जो टेररिस्ट है वो पैलेस्टीन का फ्रीडम फाइटर है, पैलेस्टीन का फ्रीडम फाइटर इजराइल का टेररिस्ट है. ओके, कश्मीर का जो फ्रीडम फाइटर है उनके लिए आज़ादी कश्मीर की बात है, इंडिया के लिए वो टेररिस्ट है. So likewise, if you see across the globe, this point is common. Kurd है, as a Turkey के लिए Kurd are terrorists, whereas the Kurdis are fighting their war of independence. So principle of self-determination on one side and the principle of territorial sovereignty on the other side. तो ये दोनों के बीच में कॉन्फ्लिक्ट है, जो इथनिक कॉन्फ्लिक्ट्स है, ये जो बताया था इथनिक कॉन्फ्लिक्ट्स टेररिज्म में उसका भी पार्ट है. सो दीज आर द कॉम्प्लेक्स इश्यूज. लॉन्ग शॉर्ट टर्म में इंटरनेशनल कोऑपरेशन एंड इंटरनेशनल लॉज कन्वेंशंस, whatever the collective efforts that can be taken, that is one. And second, philosophical way में पहले 3 पॉइंट है. इंक्रीजिंग द टॉलरेंस, इंक्रीजिंग दैट इज दोज हु आर रेडिकलाइजिंग, उनको कर्ब करना, एंड तीसरा इंटर रिलीजियस फेथ एंड dialogue. Okay, so that's about the terrorism. Now come to the fourth one, weapons of mass destruction. That is nuclear weapons. Okay, specifically nuclear weapons. Weapons of mass destruction or nuclear weapons. Nuclear weapons. Weapons of mass destruction or nuclear weapons में पहले आप एक लिखिए, what are the ethical, discuss the ethical issues, discuss the ethical issues with respect to nuclear weapons, possession of nuclear weapons. Discuss the ethical issues or ethical perspectives or ethical issues with respect to nuclear possession of nuclear weapons. Possession of nuclear. Take 2 minutes, whatever you want to write. 1 or 2 minutes. Think nuclear weapons जरूरी है, जरूरी नहीं है जरूरी क्यों है, नहीं है क्यों नहीं है, क्या है, whatever the ethical issues that you can think of. Pardon? Dismantle later on. ईरान बोल रहे हैं, ईरान अभी जो न्यूक्लियर डील साइन हुआ था, तो दे हैव डिसमेंटल्ड अंडर द दिस obviously the pact between the America and Iran. पॉजिटिव्स ऑफ वॉर में आप ये लिख सकते हो कि फॉर्मेशन ऑफ यूनाइटेड नेशन. ओके, दैट कैन बी अ गुड एनोलॉजी अदर देन वुमेन. अगर लिखना है तो नहीं, पेज पलट के ऐसे लिखो मत, मतलब बता रहा हूँ एक, मतलब what can emerge out of crisis, learning from the past that the bloodshed and war is not good, therefore we realize and created. There is a learning from the past experience. We have created institutions like United Nations in order to avoid what went wrong in the future consequences. हाँ, अरे वो वॉर दिस व्हाट वी आर सेइंग इज दे आर तो डीकोलोनाइजेशन का वो था, वो तो ऑल पॉलिटिकल वॉर. आई कम टू दैट पॉइंट. इसमें इतनी कॉन्फ्लिक्ट्स में प्रिंसिपल ऑफ सेल्फ डिटर्मिनेशन का पॉइंट है. यस, आर यू डन? यस, बताइए व्हाट इज द इथिकल एंगल ऑफ द न्यूक्लियर वेपन्स?
Two of the enemies or the two of the neighbors are having the nuclear powers like Pakistan and China. Then we need to have a nuclear power in terms of safety and stability.
चाइना के पहले हमने एक्वायर किया था पहले.
That will be taken under the present Pakistan.
पाकिस्तान के पहले, हाँ.
And humanitarian ground पे नहीं होना चाहिए.
हम्म
So for humanitarian ground पे
हम्म
nuclear power or
nuclear
नहीं होना चाहिए. ठीक है, और बताइए.
weapons are similar power in the international
Hmm.
circuit. So we need to have them
Hmm.
because it shows our authority.
Hmm.
It also keeps a contained state of hyperactivity. Say, like Pakistan वो कहते रहते हैं हम tactical weapons use कर लेंगे.
Yes.
Disturbs the harmony.
Okay, good.
which can be used in the welfare of the
Very nice. Very nice. Diversion of resources. नहीं है, point है. हाँ.
It has become a new form of peace because it will not be there then.
Third World War is going to happen.
Yes, sir.
मतलब हम guns and
It has become a medium that we are using them it as a last resort. So for a threat only that other countries are not.
okay. Other side है कुछ? एक ही साइड लिखी है आपने. Yes, very good. What if they fall in the hands of non-state actors? So there is nothing called restraint on the rational actors. Okay, yes, or I'll make you right. Issue of, okay, fine, environmental consideration.
Gives a strong message to the world.
Hmm.
Then it helps in gaining the status of superpower.
Hmm.
And it helps.
Strong message, what sort of strong message?
So जैसे अगर हमारे पास न्यूक्लियर वेपन है तो कोई दूसरी कंट्री हिम्मत नहीं
Okay.
करेगी.
Hmm.
And then it helps
Hmm?
in maintaining the confidence.
Okay, हाँ.
It helps in maintaining the confidence of the country's citizens.
Hmm. Okay, confidence देखेंगे किस बात का confidence है.
Nuclear weapons are under the threat of any natural disaster fund and.
Yes, it can be an accident also, not just about the non-state. Yes. Anything else? हाँ. Yes, yes, certainly. Resources. हाँ, dirty bomb तो वो nuclear weapon का ही हो गया. Yes, yes, certainly. There are various tactical है, strategic है. Or anything else? Effects are irreversible. They continue for the generation also. Genetic impacts. यही था. आपको आज 2-4 जनरेशन की चिंता लगी होगी. कैसे मेरे बाल बच्चे होंगे? नहीं, गुड थिंकिंग मतलब. You have to think of sustainable development में definition तो दिया था ना. Think about the future generation. Don't compromise their capacity to. Okay, yes. See, the thing is, when we are discussing ethical issue, you have to write both the sides for those group of people who justify, okay, for whatever the ground it is. And we will see that what is the one side of the coin. The one side of the coin, okay, they are particularly by the realist. The realistic school of thought. They say that there is a nuclear weapon and nuclear weapon help in creating the deterrence. Okay, that they say that peace through deterrence. Peace through deterrence. ये पहले ही बताया था मैंने. Now, I hope you get this point. Realistic scholar का बताया था. There, for them, peace is through deterrence. Now, what is the deterrence? Fear or terror? Because of fear or terror, the country will not attack on the nuclear weapon country because they threat there is a unprecedented damage that can cause to their country if they attack on a country. Okay, there is an unprecedented damage that can happen, and because of fear of this thing, the peace will be maintained. Okay, this theory of deterrence और इसको balance of terror भी बोला जाता है. In fact, balance of power जो doctrine है, न्यूक्लियर वेपन के बाद बैलेंस ऑफ टेरर कहा जाने लगा. Okay, BOT doctrine. But that's not important. This word is important. That there is a relevance of deterrence, and therefore it helps in creating the peace and stability in the system. Now the other side obviously has a very strong appeal. Okay, the first they say that what sort of peace you are talking about. Okay, what sort of peace you are talking about? You are talking about, first of all, creating the peace through the fear. Okay, and second is a very presence of nuclear weapon create a sense of insecurity into the minds. Okay, all of you are understanding, because at any point of time there is a chance that there may be a misuse by the state actors. Now think of North Korea. So-called rational state actor is not so rational. It might go into the hands of non-state actors, Al-Qaeda, Taliban, Haqqani, ISIS, किसी की भी हाथ में जा सकता है. They are not going to mind it because obviously death for them is not an issue, so they might use it. Third is there can be an accident also. Okay, in fact this is the second point. We are talking about even when nothing is happening, there is a perpetual state of insecurity. Okay, humanity is living in perpetual state of insecurity. Mind is insecure that when the nuclear bomb is going to explode. That psychological aspect is not a very good state of peace. Peace should be, it's a fearless. But you are now a threat of security. That is the first point. Second point, यहाँ पे तो हम बोल रहे हैं कि नहीं यूज हो रहा है, तब भी पीस बहुत अच्छा पीस नहीं है. Second, we are trying to say that what theory you claim that it will never be used only created a fear. Who will not use? State will not use because state is very rational actor. But then the first point is it might go into the hands of non-state actors. There might be an accident which has happened many times, nuclear weapon accidents in the past. And third thing is obviously even the state can use it or misuse it for their national interest. In fact, the America is the one who has used. Second World War was absolutely come to an end. Why the America has dropped the bomb? Because it wanted to create the hegemony, to demonstrate the world that we have arrived now. Okay, was the Japan was not surrendering? Almost it was ruined. It's a fag end. Nothing much has been achieved in order to reverse the trend of the war. The trend was already reversed. Germany was already collapsed. Japan was already ruined. And then last कुछ एक दिन बचे हैं तो उन्होंने न्यूक्लियर बम डाला है. पहले दिन डालते तो वो रिवर्स ट्रेंड करने के लिए. So the why you have used not for the destruction and this thing to create a political hegemony, that was the national interest you sought. आज नॉर्थ कोरिया क्यों कर रहा है? To save the regime. Okay, to save the regime, the North Korea is building the nuclear weapon. So-called rational use is not so rational. Okay, the rationality of the state actor is very much limited and it is defined in a different times by different context. Accident तो कभी भी हो सकता है and non-state actors तो obviously there is nothing like restraint. And if this is going to happen, there will be no one even to discuss why the weapon has been used, whether it was rational or not rational. All of you are understanding. So that's the second point. Third point is peace through terror and fear. Terror and fear से आप peace करोगे तो that is never be a perpetual peace. Peace we need a bigger positive understanding between the states. This is a transient peace. Transient peace, or even the transient peace is also, there is a sense of insecurity. So if you want a perpetual peace or the long-lasting peace, sustainable peace, the basis of peace should be better international understanding between the actors and not through the fearing or terror. All of you are understanding. Sustainable peace, long-lasting peace, perpetual peace requires a better mutual understanding between the different actors rather than the fear and terror. Fear and terror किसी country को ओवरकम कर लेता है. इनफैक्ट फियर और टेरर रहेगा तो रादर देन ओनली सिटिंग क्वाइटली द कंट्री विल थिंक ऑफ मैचिंग द फुटस्टेप्स. India itself was not an part of NPT. What does the India fear about deterrence of China? India started slowly creating the nuclear weapon and match with the footstep of China. Does the Pakistan remain silent? Pakistan has created the nuclear weapons to match the footstep of India. So there is no guarantee that this is going to be remain same and there will be in deterrence. Have you understood? Now these are some of the political. Next point is obviously the human life or human casualties. Crippling diseases, genetical abnormalities. First of all, quantity, the quantum of the human loss is huge. Second upon qualitatively, there are crippling diseases, genetical abnormalities. In fact, impacts of the nuclear weapons continue through the generations together. Not only for that particular this. There is a mortality, morbidity, etc. There's going to be have a long-lasting impact. That's the human life. Or in fact, it is called as human right violation. Presence of nuclear weapon itself is one of the issue of human right violations because there is no dignity of the life. You have taken the human as an object. Next is the environmental consequences. Huge environmental consequences. Nuclear winter-like phenomena are there. Nuclear waste, that particular aspect. Then economic aspect. Diversion of resources to something which diversion of precious resources or the meager resources. Diversion of the resources which can be otherwise invested in the development, poverty, illiteracy, empowerment, etc. etc. There are a lot many things. Think of which are this country, India and Pakistan. Okay, highest burden of poverty and malnutrition, highest number of illiterate population. Or bomb nikalne chale gaye. Think of there are very serious issues. Okay. What is a priority of the country? The priority of the country is 60% of the country do not have the toilets in the country. Okay, they go for the open defecation. And on the contrary, you have the nuclear weapon country. How can be a superpower when the open defecation is there? How can be you are superpower when malnutrition is 60%? Okay, so these are the very hardcore things that what should be the rational use of resources. That's also a very important point. Next is the political. Sixth point is political. Now, if you see the politically, it also creates the hegemony of few in international politics. How many nuclear weapon countries are there presently? 10, 9. P5 है. India, Pakistan, North Korea, Israel. Okay, so 9 countries are there. Obviously, Iran was there, but it has now not reached to the stage where they can have the nuclear weapons. Now, 9 countries, United Nations में 190 plus or 200 almost countries है. So it creates an oligarchy of few. Okay, political hegemony of few. And this gives rise to the more suspicion with respect to different scholars. One of the point we are writing there is democratization of international institution should there. But the point of view of this particular aspect is it creates more and more suspicion. So these are some of the points. Security point, that is a peace point. Then human, environment, economic, political. You can read. Now you can conclude in saying that some optimistic things. Nobel Peace Prize, this year's Nobel Peace Prize has gone to किसको मिला है? NGO. अरे NGO इतने पूरे दुनिया NGO से भरी पड़ी है. ICAN. Okay, what is the full form? Abolition of nuclear. International convention नहीं है वो. Campaign. International campaign against nuclear weapons. This is a organization, and this was instrumental in bringing the new treaty, prohibition of nuclear weapons. Okay, prohibition of nuclear weapons treaty, and this treaty is a first of its kinds. It cannot be compared with NPT, CTBT and FMCT. All these treaties were discriminatory, earlier treaties. They used to say that P5 will continue to have the nuclear weapon, but others should not have. Earlier treaties are more of a non-proliferation treaty, but this is a complete disarmament treaty. Okay, and they were instrumental in bringing this treaty. United Nations General Assembly has passed this treaty recently. That is prohibition of nuclear weapons. Prohibition of nuclear weapons, they say that there should be an universal disarmament that is required. Although obviously the P5 plus 4 countries has not given any importance or significance to this. This treaty has come through the platform of United Nations General Assembly. So this General Assembly is trying to make a moral appeal to the international community that there should be, this is a high time that we should go for the dismantling of the nuclear weapons. If you compare here, this is the point why I have mentioned about the weapons of mass destruction, only nuclear weapons, because the Convention of Chemical Weapons and Convention of Biological Weapons is universally accepted. And there is a universal ban on the chemical and biological weapon. But in case of nuclear weapon, that is not the condition. Okay, so you have to write this aspect. You have to write both the aspect. Even if you are taking a moral stand of not having nuclear weapon, you must have to write that it exists. And it exists, there are people who justify it, and there is a reason for justification, because they claim the Third World War has not happened, not because of United Nations, but because of nuclear weapons, because these are realistic scholars. Whereas the liberal scholars say that it is because of the United Nations and the different, in fact, NPT is a liberal regime. NPT is trying to control the proliferation. It has limited only to P5 countries. It has not led P5 or 4, but it has not led the spread of the countries to the world. Understood? So this is about the aspect of nuclear weapons. Somebody was talking about this North Korea issue. Okay. North Korea issue में देखिए अभी nuclear weapon, how it has become a very different weapon, and why the North Korea has gone for the nuclear weaponization. Interesting fact is, it starts with the Iraq war. इराक वॉर में क्या हुआ था, सद्दाम के ऊपर अटैक हुआ, एंड सद्दाम के ऊपर अटैक हुआ, अमेरिका हैज अटैक्ड सद्दाम हुसैन अंडर द प्रीटेक्स्ट ऑफ वेपन्स ऑफ मास डिस्ट्रक्शंस आर देयर, which has later on not found any such clue that there were weapons of mass destruction. But nonetheless, Saddam was unseated from the power. Now, countries like North Korea were observing this phenomena. Had the Iraq was having a nuclear weapon, Americans would not have attack on the Iraq if there is a real presence of nuclear weapon. This fact was reconfirmed by the Arab Spring. Arab Spring में एक countries, Tunisia, Egypt, Syria, etc. Nobody could able to save their regime because none of them were having the nuclear weapon. Now, how this was wrongly utilized by the North Korea? North Korea thought, unless and until I have a nuclear weapons and I have a intercontinental missile system, I cannot save my regime. Therefore, they went for the proliferation of the nuclear weapon in order to save the regime change, because now the America cannot attack, or it's next to impossible because nuclear weapon becomes a biggest threat. Now, this sort of thing, it means that dictatorship is going to follow this particular path, that having a nuclear weapon and justifying particular authority, no matter however undemocratic the regime is. So this is a new trend that is coming, where the power centers, in order to save, also are going for the nuclear weapon. That's a new trend that is where we see in case of North Korea. Okay. Why Iran has given? Iran was a different story, because ईरान का एक अंदर का रिपोर्ट था कि हमारे पास स्ट्रेट ऑफ हॉर्मुज है, सो स्ट्रेट ऑफ हॉर्मुज को कभी भी ब्लॉक किया जा सकता है इन एन इमरजेंसी सिचुएशन. इफ़ यू ब्लॉक द स्ट्रेट ऑफ हॉर्मुज, जोग्राफी वाला हॉर्मुज, तो होल गल्फ ऑयल जो है पूरा कंट्रीज का across the world block हो जाएगा, and they can create a larger impact, even unprecedented beyond the war also. So they had that choice. Second thing was economic sanctions जो अभी हमने देखे हैं, it has a crippling impact on the Iran. Economic sanctions इतने लगा दिए कि उनको oil बेचना next to impossible हो गया, and the whole economy of the Iran runs on the oil. So that story was different. Why they have give up? Not because of they thought it is morally correct. They have found out certain alternative aspects, realistic aspect, and they have given up. So the whole ethical issues of nuclear weapon is going in a very dangerous direction. But this sign, that is ICAN, and this prohibition of nuclear weapon is also a parallel development where we see that there is a sense of optimism that is coming into the mainstream also. That for the first time, otherwise पहले वाली सब जो treaties है वो discriminatory treaties है. India has not been signatory to NPT because they say that how can P5 have the nuclear weapon and we cannot have. That's absolutely a discriminatory regime. Okay, so that's about the nuclear weapon. Next is the refugee crisis. Refugee crisis. Now see, in case of refugee crisis, you must know the difference between these three words: legal migrants, illegal migrants, and refugees. Because most of the times, debate is lost in knowing who are who and what sort of approach we should have to look towards the different people. So, legal migrants, illegal migrants, and refugee. So first write legal migrant एक एक line में. Legal migrant is one who travel to the different country, who travel or enter in a country with official documents or permission, that is visa in bracket. With official document and with all the reasons and procedures, that is visa. Second is illegal migrant is one who enters inside the country without documents, without official documents, that is visa, or fraudulent documents at times, जुगाड़ करके कुछ, ठीक है, either without documents or fraudulent documents, or extend the stay in a country, or extend the stay in a country beyond the valid period. मतलब उसके पास डॉक्यूमेंट हो सकते हैं लेकिन आपकी परमिशन 2 साल की थी लेकिन आपने रहना चालू किया. दैट्स ऑल्सो एन इलीगल माइग्रेंट. नाउ राइट द रिफ्यूजीज. हाउ इज द रिफ्यूजी डिफरेंट फ्रॉम इलीगल माइग्रेंट? दे आर फोर्स्ड टू. दैट्स द फर्स्ट पॉइंट. और केवल खाने पीने के लिए नहीं है, इसलिए life existence. Okay, so you can write refugees are one who are forced to leave the country rather than entering. यहीं से हकाल दिया जा रहा है, ठीक है. They are forced to leave the country out of fear of persecution. Forced to leave the country out of fear of persecution. Persecution मतलब targeting a particular community. Okay, persecution, out of fear of persecution. They travel for the survival in search of safe place. They are stateless and homeless people. They are stateless and homeless people. They are stateless and homeless people. They travel in search of the safe places. Okay, so they are basically, there is a issue of existence here. Okay, not go and have a better job and greater livelihood opportunities. That is a migrant. Whereas the refugee is traveling for his very survival. Second is he is not allowed to stay there because of variety of the reasons. Okay, because he has a fear of persecution and targeted if he continues to stay in a home country. And at times they are termed as this homeless and the stateless people. Why we are writing? Because the perspective to look towards them should be different. Okay, illegal migrant sovereign country has all the right to take whatever decision they want to take to treat the illegal migrants. But when it comes to the refugees, there is a need of humanitarian perspective to be looked into the refugees. समझ में आ रहा है? इलीगल माइग्रेंट है तो आपके सोवरेन कंट्री का कंप्लीट एब्सोल्यूट डिसीजन है क्या करना है क्या नहीं करना है. But in this case, because there are forced, it's a human right violation. Like in case of refugee, that they are stateless, homeless, forced, persecuted, and fear of existence. So this is all nothing but the violation of it. Now ethical. So पहले तो definition लिखा दिया है अपने कि क्या है refugees. Now you can write the ethical aspects or ethical perspective with respect to the refugees. Ethical perspective with the refugees. Refugees. So one side of the coin, फिर से एक बार लिखे बस just bullet form में लिखे. That is refugee करो dash refugee dash homeless stateless people. Issue of survival and arrow करके लिखो needs to be treated from humanitarian point of view. Needs to be looked from the humanitarian point of view. Treated from humanitarian point of view. Now there are certain international conventions, so you can write International Convention on Refugees 1951, International Convention on Refugees, and the subsequent protocol and its subsequent protocol identifies basic rights to be granted to the refugees. Identifies basic rights to be granted to refugees. Basic rights to be granted to refugees. Okay. So initially this protocol ने जस्ट वन लाइन कि इंटरनेशनल कन्वेंशन ये जो 1951 का है वो बहुत ही लिमिटेड डॉक्यूमेंट था बिकॉज इट वाज डेवलप्ड इन द कॉन्टेस्ट ऑफ सेकेंड वर्ल्ड वॉर में बहुत सारे लोग इधर उधर हो गए थे एंड दैट टू इन द यूरोपियन कंट्री. सो दिस इनिशियली कन्वेंशन वाज ओनली लिमिटेड टू द यूरोप एंड इट वाज लिमिटेड टू द टाइम ऑफ सेकेंड वर्ल्ड वॉर, पोस्ट सेकेंड वर्ल्ड वॉर. The subsequent protocol has extended that this is a universally applicable and not only to the Europe, and it is applicable all the times, not only applied to the people of war. Okay, that is limited to the Second World War. So subsequently अब इनके right recognize है, right recognize भी है and obligation of international community and state भी recognize है. Now obligation क्या है कि अगर refugee आपके पास आ जाते हैं, so you cannot send them back as per the convention, and you have to give them the basic rights. So there are two aspects here. Refugee enjoy the rights on one hand, and there is obligation on the state to grant the basic rights. Basic rights मतलब granting the shelter, basic food, okay, basic aspects that you cannot like close your doors. You have to provide them the shelter for the temporary purpose. और टेम्परेरी पर्पस में आपको खाली स्पेस देना है इंटरनेशनल कम्युनिटी थ्रू द यूनाइटेड नेशन एंड दिस ह्यूमन राइट दिस यूनिवर्सल रिफ्यूजी कन्वेंशन जो है उसके अंडर बहुत सारे राइट्स ग्रांट करने के लिए और इम्प्लीमेंट करने के लिए बहुत सारे असिस्टेंट मैकेनिज्म हैं. देन देयर आर सर्टन इंटरनेशनल एनजीओ स्पेसिफिकली वर्किंग इन एन क्राइसिस एरिया, जैसे MSF है, मेडिसिन सैन फ्रांसिस. व्हाट इज मेडिसिन सैन फ्रांसिस? मेडिसिन सैन प्रीलिम के लिए ये क्वेश्चन आया हुआ है 2016 में. व्हाट इज मेडिसिन सैन फ्रांसिस? डॉक्टर्स विदाउट बॉर्डर्स, फ्रेंच वर्ड है वो. मेडिसिन सैन फ्रांसिस इज अ डॉक्टर विदाउट बॉर्डर्स. इट्स ए NGO, generally work in the crisis times. Okay, Amnesty International, Medicine San Francisco. So the point I was making is कि international community has institutional mechanism, funding mechanism, support mechanism in order to support the refugees, but the state has to provide the shelter. Okay, so that's a broader aspect. But there is the other side of the coin, perspective of receiving country लिखे. What is the perspective of receiving country? Receiving country, it can be any receiving country. Okay. Perspective of receiving country. Yes, इनके क्या concern है? First is the security concern. Okay. First is the security concern. Security concerns. That it might disturb their peace and security. That refugee intrusion might disturb their security and the peace. Second is the burden of resources. Okay, burden on the country's resources. Burden on the country's resources. Third, political instability. Political instability. Particularly the right wing of the country generally gets an opportunity whenever such things happen. That is what exactly why there is a rise of right wing in case of Europe in recent times. Okay, this is the Syrian crisis has happened. Syrian crisis is being rooted, and these people are traveling through Caspian Sea and the Mediterranean Sea and entering into this Greece and these countries. And it is because Europe is already in the economic crisis. So the international convention says that you have to treat them on humanitarian ground. And the moment you are starting opening the gates, so people, the right wing of different countries have started raising and saying that this is absolutely against the security and the burden. So the debate is with respect to nationalistic perspective on one hand versus the humanitarian angle on the other hand. Okay, who is Aylan Kurd? Aylan Kurd, naam suna hai? Aylan Kurd. Who was he? A baby died. Yes. एक फोटो आया होगा, बहुत फेमस फोटो है. Okay, is wearing the red T-shirt and blue short. Okay, it's Syrian. वो he has, in fact, that one photograph has changed the perspective of international community to see towards what is called as refugees. Okay, there was a family, okay, which was traveling from the Syria, and they sat in one boat, okay, husband, wife, and 2 kids. And while boat was going, okay, it capsized. So capsized हो गया तो he could not able to save the family members. He was stuck into the cord, but obviously they lost their life. They lost their life, and to an extent that it was just lying, dead bodies were lying, and a person was captured that photograph in order to tell the stories that how the refugees are facing the crisis. So that one photograph has created a lot of attitudinal change in the society to look towards the refugees. Okay, refugees कोई interest से नहीं भाग रहा है. Okay, वहाँ पे बहुत difficulty है. The treacherous route that they have to travel to. First of all, think of आपने जितना लाइफ में कमाया है वो पूरा छोड़ के आना है. अब वन साइज उसमें भी इतना सारा करप्शन है. वो जो कैप्साइज बोट है वो कॉन्ट्रेक्चुअल बोट यही प्रोवाइड कर रहे हैं यूरोपियन कंट्रीज वाले. Okay, in order to earn the money. And then in one boat, say for example capacity of 25 people, they are putting the 40-50 people. It is getting captured. So lot many people died. पोलैंड में तो एक केस हुआ है कि बोट वहाँ पे पहुँच गया, फिर उनको एक ट्रक में डाल दिया. 80 people were in truck and they said that okay we will take you to the safe places. और उनका जो है लॉक बंद कर दिया. They did not open the lock for 3-4 days. 80 people died flat inside the truck. Now you can imagine this was a conspiracy not to open the truck. It was not happened by chance कि किसी ने मतलब they forgot or anything. Because the Poland was very serious with respect to that we will not allow the country. They started erecting the boundaries. The right wing were so serious about these things that we will not allow any single person to enter. If you see this in case of Greece and this thing, lot many people died because of this treacherous path that they have taken. Bob Marley का एक बहुत अच्छा म्यूजिक है. उसने बोला हुआ है कि when I see into the eyes of refugees, they do not dance with the happiness. But what I can see in their eyes is they want to go back to their homes. They don't want to come to the first place. Nobody is going to come to that place just for the sake of fun. It is a migrant. But refugees are never been happy with that particular thing. Okay, they have to be treated in a more humanitarian grounds. और कितने सारे मतलब फैमिलीज destroyed हो गए हैं. It's not just about traveling from one place to another place. Then you have to face the consequence, and then you go through the immigrant officers. They are going to treat you. You don't know any single person in the country. So the situation is very difficult, and this has become one of the most important crises in the present times. Issue of in case of Rohingyas also, how they are traveling through the Bangladesh forest, and what sort of serious atrocities and heinous crimes that is happening. But anyways, let's focus on this one side. ये जो security and burden वाला issue है, so that is the perspective of the receiving country. Now what's the way forward? देखिए way forward क्या है? See, way forward में 2-3 way forward हो सकते हैं refugee crisis को tackle करने के लिए. First तो way forward है कि we have to stop treating them or looking them. First you have to recognize them as a humans. Okay, that is a humanitarian angle needs to be brought in while looking towards the refugees. That's the first thing. Now let's say, for example, this is Syria and Europe. Okay, just for the sake of understanding, it can be applied for any country. That is where migrant population is coming, and the Europe. Now, say for example, these people are reaching here. There can be 3 possibilities. One is, obviously there is an international obligation, so you give them the temporary shelter with all the basic facilities. Okay, so right, the first is providing the temporary shelters by the receiving country with attaching basic properties, basic rights or basic facilities. बेसिक फैसिलिटी इसमें भी काफ़ी सारा ह्यूमन राइट वायलेशन है. टेम्पररी शेल्टर्स में सैनिटेशन, डिसीज, एपिडेमिक्स, एंडेमिक, ओके, लैक ऑफ सैनिटेशन. अगर आप जॉर्डन वार्डन में देखोगे तो 3 मिलियन के हैमलेट्स है ऐसे रिफ्यूजी के. 3 मिलियन हैमलेट्स ऑफ रिफ्यूजी. कैन यू इमेजिन? पानी नहीं, इलेक्ट्रिसिटी नहीं, इंटरनेट तो छोड़ दो आप, मतलब वो तो बहुत बड़ी बातें हो गई. सो फर्स्ट इज द टेम्पररी शेल्टर. सेकेंड एंड थर्ड कैन बी अ लॉन्ग टर्म. Now, second and third, see, this is your international obligation that you have to follow. Although the country are not following, but this is something which has to be. Not only the state, but obviously it is assisted by the international community, where they are going to provide the support also. That is support through the NGOs, funding, etc. Second thing is, what is important is, in case of Europe, if you see that Germany has come forward in order to accommodate the refugees. They have announced, okay, although it is a very meager, that is 20,000 or something, they will accommodate, or maybe up to 1 lakh they can. There is a economics behind this also, and demography also, because it is a aging population. Okay, Europe is aging, and therefore aging means there is a bulge into the demographic, that is a old age group. So there is a lack of workforce here. Okay, in the middle. So Europe is in the need of a workforce. So second option, which the Germany and this other group are trying, where they can be accommodated as a larger workforce and can be absorbed, okay, into the country's polity, because the this is going to not a liability, but जो burden लिखा हुआ है, तो एक अलग perspective है उसका कि it can act as a contribution also, contribution to the workforce. It can be done on the basis of 5-10 years, or it can be permanent also. So this population can be absorbed into the country's polity or country through, और इनका अगर स्किल नहीं है तो स्किल दिया जा सकता है और फिर एब्जॉर्ब किया जा सकता है. सो देर आर डिपेंडिंग अपॉन दिस. बट सीरियन रिफ्यूजीज आर नॉट लाइक Pakistan and Afghanistan where there is a illiteracy. Syrian refugees are quite educated and skilled. If you see there, dead bodies है, dead bodies के आजू बाजू में जो है apples और वो sophisticated gadget भी गिरे हुए हैं. All of your understanding. तो refugee है इसका मतलब ये गरीब है इसलिए भाग नहीं रहे वो. Okay, it's a survival. They are also quite well-to-do from the families which are traveling from the Syria. तो उनके पास एजुकेशन है, स्किल है और थोड़ा सा उसको मॉडिफाई करके अल्टर करके बेस्ड अपॉन द नीड्स एब्जॉर्ब किया जा सकता है. एंड द थर्ड एंड द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग इज रिजॉल्विंग द क्राइसिस इन द होम कंट्री. ओके, एंड दैट्स द most important thing, because no refugee wants to leave the home. Migrant is very willingly leaves the home because it is a voluntary migration. refugee migration is a forced migration. And forced migration में, so you have to solve the problem in the mother country. Political crisis जो भी है, international community, while looking at the problem of refugee, should also look towards the resolution of the primary conflict, so that the peace, stability, and the security will be re-established, and these people can go back. See, no amount of whatever the benefits you give, there is always something to your roots. There is always something to your history, your family, your cultural roots, and nobody wants to leave that. And if at all leaves that if it is a voluntary, then that is a different thing. Okay, so that resolution of the problem in the long term is important, and international community should work for the integrating their interest. Okay, so same thing in case of Rohingyas also. Coming back to the India, was the issue of Rohingyas and what are the implication of this? So in case of Rohingya, if you see the India's history, okay, India take a pride in saying that we are multicultural, multi-ethnic, multi-religious society, and this Vasudhaiya Kutumbakam is a philosophy. If you see the Parsi community, okay, they came and settled, and India has shown the quite a liberal attitude in accepting the Parsi community. If you see the Jews also, they came when the Roman Empire attacked them, and they came, and again in case of Kerala, the Jews and this king of the then king has accepted. If you see the Dalai Lama and these people who are persecuted during the time of Tibet crisis, they have been accepted. Chakma refugees, especially during the Bangladesh crisis, there is acceptance. Now when it comes to the Rohingyas, then we get so serious about the security issue. Okay, the point is, just because they belongs to a particular religion, okay, that should not, okay, force us to stop thinking on the humanitarian lines. Okay, they are refugees first, and Muslims or the Rohingyas later. Okay, what is required is a broader perspective to look into the matter. Security, yes, definitely an important concern, but security, you cannot tag all the refugees saying that all are the terrorists. Okay, that's a very wrong. If at all there, security, a country, nuclear weapon country can go through the whatever the difficult process through scanning of the every single individual, whether the person is refugee. In fact, that point is also raised by the Europe. But none of the single event of the terrorist attack, it has been found that he was the one who has been coming through the refugee and therefore attack. Attack, उनकी जो history पता कर ली गई है, they are the lone wolf attack. Lone wolf attack, you understand? Lone wolf और उसको क्या बोलते हैं? Sleeper cell. Okay. Lone wolf और sleeper cell में फिर भी थोड़ा difference है. Lone wolf attack क्या है? In fact, it is not the refugee वहाँ पे आके वहाँ पे attack करना चालू किया. Fact of the case on the ground is because of hostile attitude of European towards these refugees, the already settled Islamic community started facing the heat of discrimination. There is an emotional upheaval that somebody is coming with a desperate need and you are closing the door, and this incidences which I have narrated has happened. That time they started feeling, and there is those who were already assimilated well into the system started thinking on the wrong lines. All of you are understanding. So the point is, this is a sort of an alibi, an excuse that is used, that is a security. Security can be tackled. See, the thing is, on one side of the line, India wants to become a permanent member of United Nations Security Council. Great powers comes with great responsibility. You cannot overturn the human right violation in your neighborhood, be colorblind to it, and then ask for make me an country is one of the great power. Okay, because great powers, whenever it is going to happen, it comes up with what is your track record, what the decision you have made when the crisis were happening around your neighborhood. So this is not just about humanitarian, it is going to benefit in the political way or harm the political way otherwise also. Second thing is, I think you must have done in the polity, that is Citizenship Act है, तो उसमें एक नया बिल आया है, Citizenship Bill 2011. So उसमें क्या एक प्रोविजन है, उसमें एक बहुत ही इम्पोर्टेंट प्रोविजन लिखा हुआ है, if there is a persecution of minorities in the neighborhood, persecution of any minorities in the neighborhood, that India will welcome all such minorities, But these minorities must be Hindu, Buddhist, Jain, Parsis, and Christian. So there is no Muslim word. So it means that your humanitarian angle and citizenship is also depend upon the sensitivity towards one country. And then you take the pride in saying that India is a secular nation. That is going to make a very strong dent into the India's secular identity. And not just about that, but these are the aspects which are being looked into the international politics. Okay, C. Raja Mohan, one of the important international scholar, writes, India has a habit of sitting on the fence policy. Sitting on the fence means India just look the things, how it is happening, why it is happening. Whenever there is an international crisis, the only task India has is to airlift the Indian citizen from the crisis. Operation Sukoon, Operation Madad, Rahat, Sankat Mochan, वगैरह वगैरह. ओके, एक एयरक्राफ्ट उठाया इंडियन एयरलाइंस का, वो भी अब बोल रहे प्राइवेटाइजेशन होगा, फिर बाद में एयरक्राफ्ट की भी प्रॉब्लम होने वाली है. You go there, you lift, that is what is your stand. Unless and until you take a proactive stance into international politics, it's very difficult to claim your superpower status. Superpower nahi, even the power status. So that is very difficult if India is going to go with this particular things. At least refugee, that problem has to be looked into more humanitarian way. I hope the points are clear. So these points needs to be properly articulated. Again, I am repeating, security is concerned, but security can be addressed. Okay. कितने रिफ्यूजीज है? 20,000 40,000 रिफ्यूजीज हैं. अरे यहाँ पे जो आप ये देखो, दिल्ली में एक हद शादी होती है तो एक विलेज तैयार कर लेते हैं. शादियाँ रहती है ना, तो 2-3 दिन एक विलेज बना लेते हैं. एक एक गांव की हमारी पॉपुलेशन देखो कितनी है. 1.3 बिलियन कंट्री cannot handle 20,000. Forget about humanitarian angle. Demonstrate to the world that we are capable of handling. एक कोई गांव बना दो छोटा सा, वैसे ही बेकार जा रहा होगा. ठीक है, पानी नहीं आ रहा है, ये नहीं आ रहा है. वहाँ पे 3-4 टेंट लगा दो, CRPF खड़ा कर दो, आर्मी खड़ा कर दो, and demonstrate to the world that we are capable of handling. And you need not have to absorb them. Keep an cordon of the area.
Many malnutrition, so many persons with malnutrition within India.
हाँ.
When we cannot take care of ourselves, this our own population one way. Why can we take about 20,000? First, we should do of our own.
That's absolutely wrong argument. Okay. See, the thing, that is what we are talking about, the statistics. When we are considering about 20,000, what is the statistic of malnutrition? What is statistic of malnutrition? 300 million. Now the 300 million, बस आप ये 20,000 की वजह से 70 years में 250 millions आप solve नहीं कर पाए. नहीं. The argument here.
20,000 might also start with that. Many more people will resort to that thing.
Many more कैसे resort करेंगे? See, the thing is, it's a sovereign country's decision. The point is not with respect to the resource. The point is with respect to the Muslim population. Okay, let it be as clear as possible. All of you are understanding. You see, in case of other, आप ये बोल रहे हो कि 20,000 population का है. You see the economic resources, how much they are getting wasted every day. You try to think of defense expenditure. You try to think of अभी जो nuclear weapons का बताया था. तो अगर आपका population of poverty and employment is then serious, you should stop everything and anything. Okay, इतने सारे international जो flights हैं. Okay, bring the austerity measures. Fly in an economic compartment. Can you have the same courage to say the Prime Minister of the country that you should travel in an economic class? Because poverty is there. You are the first among the equal. So the point is, there are certain protocols you need to follow because they are the international standards. All of you are understanding. Because the point is, see, the thing is, there are certain things you need to follow. अगर आपका, say for example, BRICS summit है, तो आपको जाना पड़ता है. That's not a good point in saying Prime Minister is traveling this much. Prime Minister has to travel. But the point is, you cannot say that, okay, this resources should be brought in and poverty should be elevated. Poverty के लिए already resources है. Are you able to use that poverty resources efficiently? That is the question. What is the level of corruption? You see, the Rajiv Gandhi, Prime Minister of the country, on the floor of the House has said that out of 100 rupees that is being spent, only 10 rupees reach to the ground. So 90 is the leakage. Now thinking that we will continue to leakage, but this 20% of the 20,000 is in population, and because of which poverty will not be there, that's just an alibi. All of you understand? Because this point is very much requires to be understood, that what are the long-term consequences. Well, long-term consequences, obviously, international. आप ये सोच रहे हो कि security threat हो रही है. If I can tell you how the security is in fact 10 times is getting threatened, because whenever you take all such discriminatory decisions, जो radical wing है, उनके लिए वो सबसे बड़ा bonanza offer है. Because they become a soft target. In a click of eye, you can convince them why not you join the radical hands. Most of the radicals, in fact, ISIS ने एक statement दिया था Indian Muslims के ऊपर. Indian Muslim हमारे कुछ काम के नहीं है. Okay, that was a very important statement from Indian point of view. हमारे कुछ काम के नहीं है. ISIS का कहना था कि we are not able to convince them powerfully. But later on, what has happened? When the more and more discrimination started happening, so-called moderate Muslims, they becomes the soft targets, and it is very easy to convince them. So we should not push the moderate Muslims to enter into the territory of radicalization. That is an important aspect, because international terrorism के लिए बहुत easy हो जाता है to radicalize the person who is on the boundary. But see, the thing is, any person in the country, except for minuscule of radicalized people, want safety, security, good future, non-discrimination. If the people have this, it is very difficult to radicalize that person. Every person wants a good family, good future for his children, and a good society. Okay, good society and security. But if there is a discrimination, then you see that there is always a radicalization. In fact, there are a good number of examples in the Rajendra Nagar also. If you have the friends, ask them what the sort of discrimination they face while taking the rooms in Rajendra Nagar. You will have a very good examples. You will witness that not all the doors will welcome them. Now that sort of discrimination, if you face, it is very difficult to target that particular person and tell them, you get radicalized, we will give you the weapons and this thing, and why you are not fighting for the justice. Under the name of justice, they will try to make them radicalized. So, ये बहुत easy argument होता है, but it has a very long repercussions if you tell in a longer term. I hope, I don't know, I have able to convince, but these are the hardcore facts. Okay, if you are very much serious about the security, you have a stake in not letting the moderate Muslim push into the radical hands. And that is going to be the important aspect. This is going to only happen when you treat them at par with the other Indian citizens. Otherwise, it's very difficult. Okay, yes, let's move on to the, I think that's, अरे 4 बजे है अभी, 10 minutes I'll leave you early. ठीक है, ब्रेक चाहिए ही चाहिए. आपके ही क्लास में ब्रेक रहता अभी 4 o'clock तो हो ही गया. कितने पॉइंट्स रहे नंबर वाइज देखिए कोई. नहीं 5 पॉइंट्स नहीं है. कौन कौन से बाकी रहे. ग्लोबल. ओके ठीक है, 5 मिनट का ले लो. 5 मिनट का ले लो. वी विल सी, बिकॉज नॉट मच डिफिकल्ट टॉपिक्स आर बीन. डेमोक्रेटाइजेशन ऑफ हायर. 1 मिनट. कौन कौन से रहे. जस्ट रीड इट आउट. हाँ ठीक है ठीक है ठीक. Environment we have already done. Democratization. thing, right? The next point, issues in international funding league. Next is issue in international funding. International funding. See, in case of funding, the issue where we see, particularly this developed countries, or for that matter, IMF and World Bank also, when they grants the fund, IMF, World Bank, whenever they grants the fund to the developing countries, ethical issue is with respect to the conditions that they attach. Conditions or the strings. Okay, जैसे स्टार मारा जाता है कि ये conditions आपको follow करनी पड़ेगी. And ethical issue is about these conditions. देखो कुछ एक condition है, any person can understand logically that if they are giving the fund, they will mind that there should be a good governance, there should be a transparency in a sense that the money should be spent for the purpose it is given. They will ensure the accountability of their money. That you are taking the money for something else and spending. These conditions are not something which imposes on the ethical aspect of a country. But there are certain conditions along with this which can impinge upon the ethical aspect. So the first, like they will also force you to decrease the public spending on subsidy और पब्लिक जो भी है यहाँ पे पब्लिक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन सिस्टम हो सकता है, मिनिमम सपोर्ट प्राइस हो सकता है. Actually, they don't say it this way that decrease the this thing. सोशल सेक्टर के ऊपर स्पेंडिंग कम कर दो. दे विल सिंपली से दैट फिस्कल डेफिसिट शुड बी स्ट्रिक्ट फिस्कल डेफिसिट शुड बी देयर because they say that if the fiscal deficit will be high, then you will procure large loans and then it will be a burden of the country's sovereignty. Now fiscal normally क्या है कि fiscal deficit कम करना है मतलब either you increase the tax or you decrease the spending. So naturally spending decrease करना मतलब subsidy decrease करना. Now point is there are certain needs of the country. Okay, subsidies में दो aspect है कि ultimately this is a neoliberal agenda that you are promoting, that you are trying to curtail the subsidy. Second aspect is to curtail the subsidy or not to curtail the subsidy is a function of sovereign country. That we internally can have a discussion that there are leakages in subsidy, there is no better targeted subsidy, therefore we can come up with the different more rational model. Whatever we are going to do, it should be the sovereign country's decision. But here the point is, through the funding, they are attaching the condition कि आपको ऐसे करना पड़ेगा. That is a imposition of particular decision. So it has a political consequences. It hurt or it dilute the sovereignty of the country also. Okay, use of the fund. It because of this condition, they dilute the sovereignty principle. That decision are rather in bracket you can write because through decision are imposed upon the country. Decision are imposed. So this is a political consequence that sovereignty of the country is getting diluted. This is a social consequence. Then third is through the funding they promote the neoliberal agenda. न्यूलिबरल एजेंडा का इनफैक्ट एक पार्ट यही है दैट इज इनफैक्ट दे टैक्स को भी वो डिक्रीज करने के लिए बोलते हैं बिकॉज कॉर्पोरेट टैक्स जो एमएनसी है डिक्रीज द कॉर्पोरेट टैक्स एंड डिक्रीज द स्पेंडिंग. सेकेंड एस्पेक्ट दे से इज ओपनिंग ऑफ द FDI or relaxation of the FDI norms so that more and more funding can easily comes in. So relaxation of the FDI norms, decrease in corporate tax, decrease in funding. Then fourth is aspect is opening of the trade. There should be a more free flow. Just decrease the custom rates or any kind of the border related standard mechanism which is there in order to facilitate more and more flow of the goods and services. Then they asked for the relaxing the labor norms. Again, that should benefit them. Relaxing the labor norms. Relaxing the labor norms. Now, we are not criticizing this decision. If a sovereign country by their own requirement, if they take it, there should be no problem. But the point here is everything is being imposed. Okay. By giving the fund. They are giving the fund. Sometimes they attach the clause like you have to take this much percentage of the defense of your defense procurement from this particular country. कि हमने इतना fund दे दिया, but at the same time you have to purchase this much of defense product from a particular country. In fact, this question was asked once that on one hand side they give the funding, on other side they also forces to buy the defense products. Defense नहीं है, ये कुछ भी हो सकता है. They are imposing. So these are the backdoor entries. This is actually nothing but promoting the MNCs, and these are called as tools of neo-imperialism. This is nothing but the neo-imperialism or neo-colonialism. Neo-imperialism. Okay, through MNCs and through promoting the neoliberal agenda. These words are important. Promoting the neoliberal agenda, promoting neo-imperialism by forcing us to open the economy, open the trade, relax the labor norms, then relaxation of this FDI norms, decreasing the public spending, decrease in corporate tax. ये सब neoliberal agenda के part है, and politically it means that your decision making is getting diluted, and at times they are not in sync with the requirement of the country. Requirement कुछ और है और आपको you are forced to do something else. So it mismatches with the structure of the country, economic structure of the country or economic development of the country. So that's why these conditions are ethical in nature, that particularly African countries के लिए तो बहुत difficult हो जाता है. Poor country है, fund मांग रहे हैं development के लिए, and then through development you are trying to promote the MNCs. It's nothing but the backdoor entry for the MNCs, and again they are trying to invest and exploit it further. They are called as the neo-imperialism. So that's the issue in case of international funding. इसी का कारण है कि IMF और वर्ल्ड बैंक को रिप्लेस करने के लिए ब्रिक्स इमर्ज हुआ है, बिकॉज दिस कंडीशंस आर सो टाइट दैट फंड लेके जितना डेवलप करना था उससे ज़्यादा नुकसान कंडीशन से हो रहा है. सो ब्रिक्स बैंक है जिसको एशियन डेवलपमेंट बैंक्स हैं, तो ब्रिक्स इज बिकॉज ऑफ आउट ऑफ द फ्रस्ट्रेशन ऑफ IMF एंड वर्ल्ड बैंक. एक तो इसमें आपकी डिसीजन मेकिंग भी डेमोक्रेटिक नहीं है. ओके, इनफैक्ट दैट्स द नेक्स्ट दिस डेमोक्रेटाइजेशन ऑफ international institutions. The next point is democratization of international institution. Democratization of international institution. Democratization of international institution में you have to simply write that international institutions are not representative and democratic. International institutions are not democratic and representative. Democratic and representative. Representative in a sense that there is no representation to different continents in a proportion that is required. So example you can give United Nations Security Council. There is a oligarchy of P5 countries. Okay, oligarchy or the hegemony of P5 countries. Now in this context what is required is United Nations Security Council reform. UN reform is what is required. हाँ क्या हुआ? हाँ वो भी है ना, यूनाइटेड नेशन. अच्छा WHO, ओके, उसके तो फिर तो हर एक इंस्टीट्यूशन में ही है. डिस्कसिंग वेरी ब्रॉडर. यूनाइटेड नेशन सिक्योरिटी काउंसिल. सेकेंड, IMF एंड वर्ल्ड बैंक में जो है कोटा सिस्टम है. पूरे कोटा सिस्टम मतलब आपका जितना सब्सक्रिप्शन होगा उस सब्सक्रिप्शन के हिसाब से ही आप बेनिफिट्स ले सकते हो. ठीक है. IMF एंड वर्ल्ड बैंक, उसके भी रिफॉर्म है. सी द व्हाट आर द पॉइंट्स ऑफ रिफॉर्म दैट इज यू विल स्टडी इन द योर IR क्लासेस. टेक्निकल पॉइंट्स ऑफ रिफॉर्म. Here, the only aspect you have to see is these institutions are not democratic and representative. Therefore, some group of people, that is oligarch, are taking the decision for the whole community. Therefore, we see that there is a urgent need for democratization in order to keep them more relevant. कई बार क्वेश्चन आता है relevance of United Nations. Because in most of the times it has been seen that because they have not reformed with respect to change in time. जब United Nations तैयार हुआ था, how much number of people members were there? 51. 51 members के लिए 5 P5 तब से बने हुए हैं. Now the number is 195. Still there is a P5. So they are not representative. Okay, that's only this statistics will give you a impression that 4 times the membership has increased, but permanent membership has remained constant. So they are not representative and democratic. Second, अगर आप देखोगे ये P5 कौन है? P5 है United States, second USSR, then UK and France, and then China. Now if you see the map, Latin America 0, Africa 0, Asia, Southeast Asia 0, South Asia 0, Islamic countries 0. The whole South is not represented. All of you are understanding. And most of the union activities are related with the South countries. Okay, maximum fund is in Africa, South Asia, Southeast Asia, and etc. Europe is overrepresented. Chota country hai and do representation hai. All of you are understanding. So it's not just about the 5 countries not representative of 195, but geographical representation देखोगे तो north is overrepresented, Europe is overrepresented, whereas south continents are absolutely not the part. So they are not. Therefore, this divide exists. That is called as the north-south divide, or divide between the developed countries and developing countries. In this context, the reform is required, and since the reforms are not happening now, China, although UN में है, लेकिन उनका जो power IMF and World Bank में है, that is not very big. Okay, in case of IMF and World Bank, then we work together, that there should be a more power that is to be given to the developing countries also. Okay, so that is the democratization. Next point is global commons. Okay. Global commons. Yes, पहले global commons है क्या लिखिए. What is meaning of global commons लिखो. Meaning of global commons. Global commons consist of those resources. Global commons consist of those resources which are not under the legal jurisdiction. Those resources which are not under the legal jurisdiction, which are not under the legal jurisdiction or ownership of any country, which are not under the legal jurisdiction or ownership of any country. Now what is happening is yes, examples लिखिए इसके क्या है? Examples, yes, examples क्या रहेंगे? Yes, Arctic and Antarctic Ocean, Arctic Ocean, Antarctic Ocean, oceans and sea beyond the exclusive economic zone, ocean or seas, sea beyond the EEZ, that is beyond the 200 nautical mile. So इधर से 200, इधर से 200 खत्म हो गया तो जो बीच का है, okay, even the deep sea explorations, deep sea exploration, then you write the open space. Okay, open space और space. ओपन स्पेस में भी जो सैटेलाइट आप लॉन्च करोगे तो उसका कोई जुरिस्डिक्शन नहीं है. बायोडायवर्सिटी इन जनरल लिखे, ग्लोबल बायोडायवर्सिटी, विच इज आउट ऑफ ऑब्वियसली द लीगल टेरिटोरी, जो डीप सी ओशन की है, बायोडायवर्सिटी एक्सेट्रा एक्सेट्रा. नाउ इसमें जो है किसका ओनरशिप रहेगा. नाउ दिस हैज बिकम द न्यू स्पॉट फॉर द कॉन्फ्लिक्ट. नाउ इथिकल इश्यूज लिखे, ये तो मीनिंग हो गया व्हाट इज ग्लोबल कॉमन्स एंड व्हाट आर द एग्जांपल्स. इथिकल इश्यूज और इश्यूज विद रिस्पेक्ट टू ग्लोबल कॉमन्स. Issues with respect to global commons. Recently it has been found that different states are claiming their territorial rights, claiming their territorial and ownership rights over the global commons. Okay, this has given rise to new form of conflict on issue of global commons, because of claims and counterclaims of different countries. इसमें क्या होता है कि जाओ एक्सपीडिशन करो और वहाँ पे फ्लैग लगा के आओ. पहले बोलेंगे कि फ्लैग लगा के आना है, फिर बोलेंगे कि ये हमारा एरिया है, हमने कब्जा कर लिया. मतलब इट्स लाइक अ गेम टाइप वाला थिंग. Now the Russia and these countries are almost occupying the Arctic Ocean, जो कनाडा वगैरह है. तो ये क्या कर रहे हैं कि वहाँ पे जा रहे हैं, एक्सपीडिशन के नाम के ऊपर जा रहे हैं, वहाँ पे जो है रिसोर्सेस वगैरह, they are trying to extract the resources. Now as per the definition of global common, you don't have the legal jurisdiction, but now you have started claiming that this is our legal jurisdiction. So that's the point. And second, you can write that resources of global commons are being exploited without giving due consideration for preservation and conservation of such resources. वे फॉरवर्ड लिखिए, क्या इश्यूज को कैसे सॉल्व करना चाहिए. वे फॉरवर्ड ग्लोबल रिसोर्सेस. इवन द साउथ चाइना सी का भी काउंटर क्लेम ही है वो. ओके, दैट इज 9 डैश लाइन एंड एवरीथिंग, दैट इज ऑल्सो द काउंटर क्लेम. यस, वे फॉरवर्ड लिखिए. वे फॉरवर्ड इसमें यह है कि देयर शुड बी सर्टन रेगुलेटरी बॉडी, centralized regulatory or you can write there is a need of forming international regulatory institution, or establishing the international regulatory institution to regulate and manage the global resources. Resources of global commons. Second, principle of share responsibility. Principle of shared responsibility. Shared, SHARED. Shared responsibility should be followed in preservation and conservation of global commons. And the next point, last point, that is the resources should be shared among international community. Presently क्या हो रहा है? Only one state is keeping it. Okay, should be shared. So principle of shared responsibility, shared management, and shared utilization of resources. मतलब manage भी करना है. The first point is shared management. That is, there should be a regulatory body. Preservation, yes, collective preservation is required. We are not saying that you cannot touch. You can collectively exploit the resources, and it should be distributed equally among the different countries. So their preservation, regulation, and utilization, these are the points of global commons. It is being said that when it is everybody's responsibility is nobody's responsibility, or when there is no legal claim. So obviously the only factor that you are going to do is exploit, and without even giving back on preserving them. So that's the principle. कौन सा point रह गया अभी? Just check it. Ethnic conflict और कुछ रहेगा? WTO and patent लिखे एक दो लाइन. WTO environment तो हो जाएगा. Patent issues लिखे एक लाइन लिखे patent issues को. Patent issues particularly related with the generic drugs. Okay. Patent issue में दो side divergent side क्या है? See, the thing is, both the sides are equally valid, but you have to see the perspective in a different way. So, points for patent and points rather than against, what should be the exceptions for the patent? Okay. Points for patent, see, the thing is, if you will not give an importance to the patent, there will not be an research and development. What is a patent? Patent is a incentive for your discovery, loyalty that is given for your creation. Okay, so points for patent, it promotes R&D. It promotes R&D. So yes, patent recognition is important. So think of any disease, there is no drug available. Now you are saying that they have discovered the drug and therefore the generic variant should happen. Now, if the generic variant should happen and they are not going to recover the cost, why will they bring the drug in the first place? Okay, they will not discover, they stop discovering. So, yes, you have to see that one side of the coin is, it acts as a, patent is a loyalty or royalty given to the creator, okay, for discovering a particular product. This act as an incentive. This act as an incentive to promote R&D and discovery of new drug. But now the second side is point against, or what sort of implementation of the patent should be there. Second is, you can earn the profit, but profiteering is bad. Profiteering is bad. Okay, you can earn the profit, but profiteering is bad. Second thing is, you have to also take into account the circumstances and the issue. See, in case of technology, mobile phones and etc., it's not an issue of survival. If an Apple is making a patent, it's fine that poor will not purchase it, but they will not die. All of your understanding, they will not have that product, but they will not die. Here, why this issue becomes all the more important in case of generic drugs, particularly in case of cancer and HIV/AIDS, because first of all, there are incurable. Okay. Second is they are deadly diseases, and the cost of all medicine is too high. And the population affected is poor. Okay. Now, if you see this context into consideration, then there should be some middle ground that has to be found out. Okay. Why issue of generic drugs is very serious? Because there are certain diseases like cancer and HIV, and most of the people who are suffering are from the poor background. Okay. पुअर बैकग्राउंड है, या फिर आप ये बोल सकते हो कि मोस्ट ऑफ द पीपल आर बिलोंगिंग टू एशिया एंड अफ्रीका. ओके, एंड दे डोंट. नाउ इफ यू सी द कॉस्ट ऑफ द कैंसर, एक पेटेंटेड ड्रग का एग्जांपल दे रहा हूँ, कितना रिडक्शन होता है? 8 to 10 लाख रुपीस नॉन पेटेंटेड ड्रग का प्राइस है, और पेटेंटेड ड्रग्स कम डाउन डायरेक्टली टू 20,000 रुपीस, 20,000, 30,000 rupees. Now, when you have 8 to 10 lakh, even if the drug is existing, it is as good as there is no drug available in practice for these poor people. So, in spite of drug is available, they will die. Now, therefore, here comes the humanitarian angle. Why product in case of electronics, gadget, and this thing cannot have the humanitarian angle. But in case of generic drugs, it's an issue of public health. Okay, and therefore the humanitarian angle should be brought in. तो यहाँ पे जो है incurable disease है, cost of drug is too high, it almost make it impossible to access the drug and people are poor. And this is, ये भी है देखो, दूसरा एक अगर चीज़ रहती है, कोई दूसरा डिसीज ले लो और X ड्रग है और Y ड्रग है. X ड्रग्स Y ड्रग की, Y इज़ अ पेटेंटेड ड्रग, थोड़ी इसकी एफिकेसी ज़्यादा अच्छी है, बट X ड्रग से भी काम चल रहा है. But in case of cancer and HIV, this does not happen. You have a very limited number of drugs, or for that matter, XDR-TB. XDR-TB is extremely resistant drug TB. अभी एक magical drug करके bedaquiline नाम का एक drug discover हुआ है. Okay, this bedaquiline drug is also you can say that the path-breaking discovery. It is not very common because these drugs are very rarely found. Rarely discovered. So in such cases, some middle path has to be found. तो इसमें इंडिया के पेटेंट एक्ट में दो प्रोविजंस है. वन इज कॉल्ड कंपल्सरी लाइसेंसिंग. सो इंडिया हैज प्रोविजन ऑफ कंपल्सरी लाइसेंसिंग. कंपल्सरी लाइसेंसिंग में गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया इन चीज़ों को देख के पेटेंट को ओवरकम कर सकता है. Okay, but yes, certainly there are certain provisions. But in an exceptional compulsory licensing are the exceptions to the India's patent laws, where in exceptional circumstances you can override the patent. You can override the patent, particularly in all such cases. So, wo CIPLA, Ranback, SICO directions देते, you can form the generic copies of these drugs because this issue is involving the issue of public health. Have you understood? This is a middle path. कंपल्सरी लाइसेंसिंग में ये होता है कि आप एक बार का लंप सम इनको दे देते हो. जनरली पेटेंट 20 ईयर्स के लिए रहता है जनरली. ओके, बट समटाइम्स व्हाट यू डू, यू मेक अ लंप सम अमाउंट एंड ब्रेक द पेटेंट. ओके, फॉर दिस पर्टिकुलर. सो कंपल्सरी लाइसेंसिंग. एंड सेकेंड इज पैरेलल इंपोर्टिंग. पैरेलल इंपोर्टिंग में ये है कि किसी दूसरे कंट्री ने पेटेंट ब्रेक करके मैन्युफैक्चरिंग स्टार्ट की है, तो यू कैन इम्पोर्ट दोज प्रोडक्ट्स. ओके, जिसका पेटेंट ऑलरेडी ब्रेक हुआ है वहाँ पे सस्ते दाम में अवेलेबल है. बट इसका पहले है कि पहले कंपलसरी लाइसेंसिंग ही आएगा. ओके, ओनली व्हेन यू डोंट हैव एन ऑप्शन ऑफ कंपलसरी लाइसेंसिंग. जैसे किसी कंट्री में ये भी हो सकता है कि कंपनी इज नॉट रेडी टू मेक द ड्रग. इफ यू कैन प्रूव देन यू कैन रिसॉर्ट टू द पैरेलल इंपोर्टिंग. The very point of understanding these two provisions is this reflects the sensitivity with respect to the public health issues in India. दूसरा एक इशू आता है that is within the patent. Just एक लाइन में बताता हूँ. That is a evergreen patenting. Okay. अब ये वेस्टर्न कंट्रीज वाले क्या करते हैं, थोड़ा सा माइनर ट्विक करके they try to say that this is a new product. जो सुप्रीम कोर्ट इन द बहुत सारे केसेस में, ये जो जर्मनी का बेकर केस था उसमें बताया है कि न्यू पेटेंट की न्यू प्रोडक्ट की डेफिनेशन बहुत डिफिकल्ट रहेगी. माइनर ट्विक इन द प्रोसेस विल नॉट बी कंसिडर्ड एज न्यू प्रोडक्ट. सो दिस ऑल्सो प्रोविजन इज बिकॉज ऑफ स्टॉपिंग द एवर ग्रीन पेटेंटिंग. एवर ग्रीन मतलब एक प्रोडक्ट तैयार करो तो उसको ही थोड़ा सा ट्विक 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 करके 20 साल हो गए फिर ट्विक, 20 साल हो गए फिर ट्विक. देयर इज अ एवरग्रीन पेटेंटिंग. सो वेस्टर्न सोसाइटी मेक एन ऑब्जेक्शन टू इंडियाज पेटेंट सेइंग दैट योर लॉज आर वेरी टफ, बट एक्चुअली दैट्स नॉट द थिंग. इंडिया डू नॉट ग्रांट फॉर अ फ्रिवोलस रीजन द पेटेंट. यू नीड एन genuine creation that you have really brought a new product, then the patent can be granted. Okay, so these are some of the issues, ethical issues within the patent. Any other issue which is remaining? See, the environment issue, when your IR will be over, बाकी हमने जो किया था, I hope you remember growth, development and environment and sustainable development. इसमें केवल वो point ऐड हो जाएगा कि जितने भी international conventions है, United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, Montreal Protocol. So whenever you will do your environment, थोड़ा सा IR का उसमें 4-5 पॉइंट. बट स्टिल इन दिस पेपर फिलोसॉफिकल पॉइंट्स आर मोर इम्पॉर्टेंट. सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट का ट्रायड बताया था, इकोनॉमी, इकोलॉजी एंड इक्विटी. and some principle like Gandhi's principle of need and greed, Buddhism principle, Schumacher principle of small is beautiful. These points are more important. Any other? Ethnic conflicts, yes. एक ही line है उसका. That is a principle of self-determination. Principle of self-determination versus territorial sovereignty. Territorial sovereignty. चाहे वो whether it is a question of Tibet, whether it is a question of Kashmir, whether it is a question of any other country in Yugoslavia or disintegrated Yugoslavia जो है, उनका कहना क्या है कि principle of self-determination should be upholded. We should have the right to determine what should be our political future. Okay, every group, whoever asking for the autonomy or independence, their point of view is there should be a principle of self-determination, that we should have autonomy to decide our political future. Our fate cannot be decided by the others. And it comes in conflict with the territorial sovereignty, because obviously if you grant the self-determination, then it might affect the territorial. Because this will, from this point of view, this is a secessionist demand. इनके point of view से देखोगे तो आप secessionist is a negative word. इनके point of view से it is a struggle for freedom. It's a freedom struggle. So this ethical conflict has to be taken into account. Now the thing is, why this, इसके beyond एक underlying point है कि this demand all grow because they somewhere face the discrimination within the territorial sovereignty. So way forward can be found provided that you can stop discriminating the group of people and can integrate into your polity. Now इसमें क्या क्या वो हो सकता है, political autonomy grant करना. टेरिटोरियली आप इंडिया का पार्ट रहोगे, बट देयर विल बी अ मोर डिसेंट्रलाइजेशन. जैसे अभी हम ये श्रीलंका में बोलते हैं, श्रीलंका में व्हाट वी से इज 13+ अमेंडमेंट शुड बी इम्प्लीमेंटेड. व्हाट डज इट मीन कि तमिल ग्रुप को सेपरेट कंट्री मत दो, बट दे शुड हैव अ कंप्लीट पॉलिटिकल autonomy within the four walls of the constitution of the Sri Lanka. In case of Gorkha hai, or what we have presently 370 in case of India, these are all nothing but within the territorial sovereignty there is a political autonomy, that in your political autonomy we will not interfere. So that sort of if thing is there, then the demand of self-determination to an extent of secessionism will be limited. But when they face that under the disguise of this, there is a lot of political intervention and our identity is getting lost, then the demand of self-determination becomes very high. Or if they feel there is a discrimination, the demand comes back in a more vocal form. Okay, so that's two different conflicting things. And third thing is accommodating their polity, because multiculturalism and multi-ethnicity is also a way of life, that you need to be tolerant towards their culture. So that's about it with respect to ethnical conflicts. Any other? I think we are done. Okay, so we have almost like 99% we have finished our syllabus, and we still have 1 or 2 classes. You will be informed about it. What is going to be, पहले तो आप एक बार previous years के question paper देख लो and syllabus देख लो if any point is remaining. I'll be discussing, there is one topic, corruption करके एक है in general. Okay, and the questions are also asked. Although everything that we are talking about is a corruption only, but the point is there should be a little separate discussion is also required. IT Act 2000, why should I discuss? मतलब ethical angle क्या करूँ उसका discuss? 66A का एक ही line है, misuse of IT Act. What I am going to discuss is, first is the corruption, second is work culture करके एक syllabus में topic है आपका, third is previous years question paper के कुछ आपके questions होंगे, and rest if you have any doubt, और एक दो case study. Okay, I am going to discuss some of the case study to give you overall picture ki what sort of different sorts of case studies that can be asked उसके फॉर्मेट्स रहेंगे, कुछ एक स्पेसिफिक फॉर्मेट, तो ये स्पेसिफिक फॉर्मेट आपको मतलब मिनिमम उतना तो करना ही करना है. बाकी you go through this 2-3 days whatever you have, or maybe whenever will be the next class, revisit your syllabus and previous year's question paper. If you have any problem, then bring that in the very next class. Okay, so we'll stop here. Thank you so much, Riyaj. ज़्यादा टाइम हो गया आज, टॉपिक ही बड़ा था इतना. हाँ हाँ, यस, हाँ.